Picture the scene. 3 years ago, a short, dumpy nerd approaching 50 sits down, cracks open his copy of UK1 Beyond the Crystal Cave and thinks, I'm going to do a review of this. I get my headset in front of me. I lay it down on the table so that the microphone is pointing upwards so I can speak into it. I proceed to wobble on for about 20 minutes, then think, okay, how do I edit this? I haven't got a clue. How do I put pictures on this? I haven't got a clue. It could be said I still don't have much of a clue, but that was 3 years ago. And this week is the channel's 3-year anniversary. So happy birthday to the channel. Happy birthday, everybody. It's marvelous. It's marvelous. Good evening, everybody who's here. We have Bear, we have Grumpy Old Slan, we have Stereotypical IQ, and we have Halakar. Hello, chaps. And,
hello, and congratulations.
Yeah,
thank you.
Congratulations.
I have a celebratory bottle of red beside me. I didn't sleep very well last night. I'm hoping this will make me sleep better tonight. So in chat, we have Richard. Hello, Richard. Mr. Baker, Straw Piglet, Jeans there. Mage is lurking there. Kabuki Kid. Then we've got Malachi and Curtis and Elfbait. And yeah. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? So, before we come to tonight's topic, I thought we'd have a bit of a spicy one for an anniversary stream. But before we go, I never planned my topics very well ahead. I was driving home in traffic thinking, what the hell am I going to talk about tonight? And I thought, oh, no, it's birthday time. Yeah, we'll talk about something like that. Yeah, cool. Okay, all right. Hello, Midu. How are you doing? So, before we go into anything to do with the topic, how's your gaming been for the last 7 days, chaps? Let's go round in a big circle. Yes.
I killed a PC on Monday night.
You killed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was you, not the player's own daft actions. Or the
No. They accepted an honor duel to protect one of the other characters, and they were doing really well. And then a critical hit and a massive damage bonus. They was twain in two, or as some people have said, they are resting in pieces, or she's not half the elf she used to be.
Oh, whose PC was it?
April's.
Which game was it?
Playing in fancy new game starting up on Monday night for my usual Star Trek Odyssey group, but with one of them traveling Europe with his wife for 3 months, we decided to play this instead. And then, of course, he said, I'm making a dwarf when I come back. So it's like, okay, I guess we're playing this for a while then.
Good. Well, yeah, they clearly enjoyed it. So I need to catch up on people's recent videos and streams and things. But don't we all? Don't we all have a backlog of it? Yeah. It's all too easy to have a backlog of everybody's stuff. Other games been good though, Bear?
I haven't played much else since last time I was here, so that was about the only game I think I've run since then. Oh yeah, I think that's about it right now. It's prepping for the backer kit. My life is busy.
Yeah. Slan.
Well, Saturday we played OSC. Did a choose your own adventure Monday evening. And I've been prepping for my Gamma World game on Friday and for the OSC session Saturday morning that I'm running. So that's been my gaming related stuff.
Keeping yourself busy.
Yeah.
Indeed. Hello, Crafting Gamer. Hello, GM Johnny. How you doing? Iman, IQ, whatever you want to be called.
Me? Oh, well, where do I start? Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Call of Cthulhu session. It's probably the most entertaining one so far, to be honest. There was so much stuff that went horribly wrong, and we ended up missing a very key bit of story that we were supposed to do.
Yes, you did. And what happened to let everyone know? I mean, your character didn't start with a massive amount of sanity. You only got a POW score of 35, which meant you started with 35 sanity points. And you are quite an inquisitive player. You like to poke and prod most things, which means in terms of Call of Cthulhu, that means you've had to make the most sanity checks. How many of those sanity checks have you passed, would you estimate? Maybe 1 or 2 out of that 10
1
so
or
far?
2.
Yeah,
yes, 1 or 2.
1 or 2. And how's your sanity looking now?
So started on 35, currently at 10. So it's fantastic.
10 out of 100.
My character ended yesterday's session, sat at the edge of his hotel bed, not really able to sleep, just twirling his knife in his hand, thinking about suicide.
Yeah. Yes.
Looking for that extra push over the edge and going up to 11.
I keep telling you guys, don't
hear
read,
about being ready to
don't
be a police
taste.
officer or a politician now.
Yeah, and don't read or taste or smell or hear or touch or look at anything when you play Cthulhu.
But unlike other Call of Cthulhu sessions, my character wasn't the only one to lose a bit of sanity.
Oh,
Right.
Andy's character. Yes, Andy's character's had a little bit of an incident. His was only a short burst, though. He'd only lost he'd lost 6 in the space of about half an hour, which triggered a short outburst, and he trashed his hotel room in anger and frustration.
And when we pick up next week, he has to explain that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas you unfortunately are now depressed and suicidal, and every time you go to sleep, you have this dream of the perfect release, but you wake up just before you're able to perform the act in the dream.
Every single time.
Just wait until you have the dream.
I always
where you
wake up
see a
right
dog.
before the good bit.
Yeah, the good bit's going to be a dog chasing you. Trust me, it's not good.
But yeah, all in all, yesterday's session was absolutely fantastic, mate. Thank you again.
Thank you. Yes. And it was a complete car crash from start to finish. They managed to avoid lots of interesting and potentially sanity sapping stuff, and then refused to take part in a trial, meaning the innocent person that they really should have saved got condemned, and they didn't find a helpful artifact and returned empty-handed and heavy-hearted. And yeah.
So not only did we fail to save an innocent soul, we also failed to find the thing we actually needed to progress with the journey.
Oh no, you can still progress.
Well, I don't know if you can call it progress, though.
Oh yeah, well, we'll see what happens with your character. Halakar, any gaming this week?
No, prepping for the next game. We had so much fun trying to figure out the unarmed combat system last time that I made my own, much more streamlined grappling and overbearing charts and tables. And then I got out all my what are they? The thing that WizKids puts out, the Warlock tiles, and started building the Temple of Marika, because I think that's where they're eventually going to end, now that they were attacked by and killed the high priest and captured the lower priestess and against the cult of reptile god. So that's where they're going to be going next, because they're going to find a little boy named Manfred whose parents were just kidnapped, who's going to talk about how much he loves all the aardvarks in the temple.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent.
Halakar, I can't help but notice you said that's where they're going to end, not end up. That's where they're going to end. So TPK on the horizon, is that what you're saying?
No, actually, other than the final battle, they've already had their toughest one, just because they did everything so, and I don't want to say poorly, it's just the path they chose led them to a big confrontation.
And then the dice saved them, from what I remember.
So yeah, they're going to get they're going to run into the 2 elves that keep watch over the town by night and get some intel from them. And the one friend they made in town happened to be the random one I rolled that the cultists kidnapped that night. So, but their little boy hid under the floorboards in the house, and he smelled really stinky lizard things and heard them talking about the temple. So those are going to be their hints, and I pray they follow them. They probably won't, but they might just decide to go out and hunt alligators or something because they heard rumors there were alligators seen outside of town.
Oh, the players. Oh, well.
And I don't know if you, I know you've just muted yourself, Midu, but if you are there,
No, I'm here. Hello.
You're there.
I just didn't
Hello,
want to
Midu.
interrupt
How
anyone.
are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good. A bit sick, but good.
Oh, not too sick though. Hopefully.
No, not too.
Any games you've played recently you'd like to let people know about?
Well, I've been working on one which I told Iman about, and I told old Slan. By the way, what's the origin of your name?
My name?
No,
Slan.
Grumpy
Whose
Old
name?
Slan.
Slan.
Yeah,
Okay.
your
Slan
name.
Slan is a 1950s science fiction novel by A.E. Van Vaugh, and the Slans are essentially like the next evolutionary steps in humanity. They're telepaths. They can read minds and transmit their thoughts. And this being written in the 50s, where there was a lot of paranoia because of the Red Scare. Of course, they're being hunted down by regular humans, and they have to try to hide themselves into the general population. Slan is also a race in Warhammer, and it's also the name of an evil goddess in the manga Berserk. I found out later.
So pretty much the idea of the name is older than me. That's what I got.
Oh, it's older than me. It's way older than anyone here, I think.
And Slan's old.
I
think the only part of Slan's name that is correct is the old bit, because he's not grumpy. He's one of the least grumpy people on my channel. He's always cheerful, apart from
In
when
the
he has
entire
work
year
issues.
Slan, he's been grumpy once.
Yes.
We need to see a picture of
Yeah,
Happy
so-
Young Slan.
Is that how
Can
it
you
got?
hear me, guys?
I said
Yep.
we need to see a picture of Happy Young Slan.
I'll dig
So
for
I've
the
been working on this
archives. Sorry.
Go on, Midu.
It's okay.
It's all right.
So you've been
Continue.
working on.
Oh yeah, I just don't know because of my Middle Eastern internet. I just don't know when I'm lagging and when others are lagging or frozen.
We can hear you really
Um,
clearly, so don't worry.
Okay, I'm glad. So I've been working on this campaign, and I thought I was getting a bit close to finishing it, but the more I work on it, the more I figure out it'll need more time.
Sorry, Midu.
Iman, were you trying to help him there?
Yeah, he was basically like discussing, his character classes and the backstory and stuff like that with me, and I was like putting in my 2 cents here and there, and it actually made him go like, "Oh, do you know what? I might consider that." And I'm like, "Shit, I've given him more work to do."
No, but it did help me indeed. Like, it did actually help. And I've also been in a campaign, one of the only campaigns I joined as a player, and it's been going pretty decently. There was a fight. Everyone almost died. That was yesterday. I was busy with you guys actually in voice chat while everyone was getting slaughtered in the background. And I was like, oh shit, what's happening? And they're all just getting absolutely beaten and brutalized. Once I was done with you guys, I was like, all right, now let's go help them. And when my guy arrived, the tide started to turn.
Here, Midu came
Always
to
when you
save
want
the
your
day.
character to show up.
Yes. Hello, no
So
sorry.
that's
Hello,
pretty
Daniel.
much all of it.
Cool. So, games on the go for everybody, even if it's just game creation. And we have a topic tonight. And I thought it might be possibly a a lively topic. Stereotyping in gaming.
All right, I got to go by.
Oh, there's so many options, though. Are you talking stereotypes of gamers or of characters or?
Oh, we're going to try and cover both. I'm here to insult everybody tonight. So,
Well, I took a bath today. Okay.
But no, we'll start with stereotypes in the game world. And I feel that stereotyping really has become a bit of a dirty word. There are the people who believe it's wrong to have any form of stereotype in their game. There are people who are burnt out on stereotypes and thus like to push against them. Whereas I believe some stereotypes are necessary. Because if, let's say, one of the common criticisms of people playing non-human races in a game is they just play them like humans in skin suits. The only thing you could tell that this player character is an elf is because they're on Roll20 or whatever that virtual tabletop, or they've got a miniature of an elf. Nothing else they do in the game looks, sounds, feels elf-like. And often it's because they don't want a stereotype. Often. Not always, but often. And I feel that at the start of a game, a DM should lay down what the expectations are for that particular race in that setting, and the players should do their utmost to work with the DM's material to then create something unique. Because it's very important at the table, I believe, when you're playing a character, not just for yourself, but for everyone else at the table, to try and paint a picture so the image the other people at the table have got in their mind fits the race you're trying to play. Does anybody disagree or hate me for saying any of that?
Absolutely not. I think it's completely true.
Mm-hmm.
No grumpiness from Bear?
First, bite a bag. And second, well, okay, look, this is a really slippery slope you're on. Like, really slippery. You can go to the trope idea of the Planet of the Hats, which is probably the best and closest thing to what we're talking about here, in that in sci-fi, your favorite subject ever, often when they visit a planet, it's a monoculture that exists on the planet. Everybody wears a hat. It's the Planet of the Hats, right? So that's one of the tropes or dangers of stereotyping under racial archetypes. Why it exists in D&D, as far as I'm concerned, is because you weren't supposed to meet a lot of elves or dwarves or things like that, and therefore the idea that when you did meet an elf, they were a iconic version of their people, right? But now we play in a very different world, and we play with a world where I've seen games where nobody's human, which is weird to me, but there you go. So in those games, you're going to run into non-existent cultures. You're going to run into non-existent stereotypes, or you'll see stereotypes. I mean, how many bloody house cat tabaxi have you seen in your life at this point in time, right? Where they always I want to knock stuff off the table, and I'm going to go and, you know, it's just like, I get it. You love your cat and you want to play your cat in D&D, but it's not interesting. It's just stereotypical. It's a trope. So for me, they exist for reasons. They are guide stones and markers on how to play a character, species, or culture, or what have you. But they're always more interesting when someone can take them and expand them and go different ways and still keep the base, but make it more interesting. Like, for example, there's someone playing in one of my games. He's playing a jumped up knight who was a cloth merchant family, and he's very, very excessively knightly as a result of that, because he has to prove himself to the others, and that's really an interesting way to take something and spin it on its ear. Other than that, he's a pretty mediocre player, but that was a good move. You got to get all pump me up, man. Learn some humility over there on your misty island.
No, Daniel. Someone let me know who's got the little bonuses. Let me know who's got the little bonuses.
Yeah.
Looks like Michael Stronghold, Master Blaster, Omen Owl, Midu, and Walter MC.
Look at that.
There we go.
Again, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Omen Owl, Midu, and Walter MC. Yeah, nice.
5 names I recognize. Super duper. Hello.
That's always a plus,
That's great.
It is, yes. More than 2 regulars there. More than 2 regulars. It depends which stream you go to. On Wednesday or Friday. They're all names I recognize. So, right. See, my opinion on that is, I mean, yes, I took the idea of the jumped up knight because I wanted to. Well, firstly, I rolled his how he got his nobility. I thought, how can I work with this? I want to make it obvious that he's trying to make out that he's a noble. He's a little bit of an inferiority complex underneath, so he's trying to impose himself as a noble. But slowly, as the game goes on, just peel away a few layers that show he's got this little bit of insecurity about him. I thought that would be a slightly different way of spinning it, but it was guided by the dice which stated my background. New noble. Okay, how can I make this work? Which is, as I said, going with what the DM has written about his world and trying to spin it in a way that works. Which hopefully I'm doing. So my general opinion on this is the player characters are the ones that are at the forefront of every game session. So say, for example, you've got someone playing a dwarf in the party. Everybody else is interacting with that player character much more than they are likely to interact with any NPC dwarfs in the game. So the image of the dwarf in the world is largely dictated by how the player plays it, because that's the main impression that is given across, because that is the dwarf that is seen and heard the most often. So what I like to see from a player, if that, for example, they're playing a dwarf, if dwarves typically greedy, like to drink, like mining. So I'd rather have a dwarf walk into a bar, and I don't want to see a dwarf go into a bar and say, sorry, I'm teetotal. Because to me, that doesn't feel like a dwarf. But I'd like the dwarf to find another dwarf in the bar and argue about which beer is better. Or whether this dwarf prefers a really strong ale, this dwarf prefers to drink a large quantity of a weaker ale, or what have you. Those are 2 dwarfs behaving differently, but acting as dwarfs. That's just a very, very basic example. So that's how I like to see, because I like to see these stereotypes, tropes, whatever you want to call them, applied in the game, but used as a bit of a foundation. They don't have to be the be all and end all, but they're a little bit of the foundation. They're what you grow your character from. Now, when I came back to the hobby in 2012, I came back to a D&D that looked and felt nothing like the D&D I remembered. I went onto some message boards and played a few online games, and one of the first characters I encountered in a game, a player character was playing a dwarven monk who'd been an insane jester in the king's court. He didn't talk like a dwarf, didn't act like a dwarf, what I remember. Dwarves can't be monks in old school D&D. I didn't know anything about new school D&D. So nothing about that character made me feel like that was a dwarf. I was thinking, what's happening? What's happening? And then for the next couple of years, I found that gaming in general seemed to have gone that way. People were trying to create something that was new and outlandish and different. And it all just, to me, lacked any depth, because you've got a lot of characters with just one sort of trait that just became annoying because it was pushed and pushed and pushed. This is why my character is different. This is why my character is different. Look at me. I'm different because my character does this. And that's what I feel it falls into. So when I ran against the Cult of the Reptile God for one of my groups, Halakar's mentioned it earlier, and when they were in the Temple of Marika, one of the guys said, I'm just going to play a stereotypical dwarf fighter, because nobody plays that nowadays. And I was thinking, oh, how refreshing. He went to the pub, got very drunk. They went to the Temple of Marika. In the temple was there was a line of golden statues. The temple has been corrupted.
The aardvark.
These statues have not been damaged or defaced in any way by the corrupted priests or the occupants of the temple who've been corrupted. Why is that? Because they know that they can't touch them unless they are true followers of the goddess Marika. Of course, they're not anymore. So these statues, beautiful golden statues, are there unmolested. The dwarf sees them. Oh, gold statues! Gold! I grab one. Make a saving throw versus spells, please. Saving throw versus spells has failed. The curse drops a random stat to 3. Roll me a d6, please. 2. Intelligence. His intelligence drops to 3. So he describes sort of going fuzzy and then coming to again. And then says to me, what do I see? I say, you're standing in a corridor. All along the corridor is a line of golden statues. So what does he do?
He grabs another statue.
Grab one! Because he's got 3 intelligence now. And that to me it felt right. And it was a good piece of role playing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He was willing to accept the consequences of the curse. I pissed myself laughing. I thought it was really funny. When it happened, the rest of the group were like, oh, God. I can't remember. I think he passed his next saving throw, so then the rest of them held him back. But that's the sort of thing I'd like to see. Players leaning into this sort of stereotype and making it fun. Does anybody disagree with me?
Well, I don't disagree with you, not at all, but I did find it weird that you had this caveat at the start about you don't want to see a teetotaler dwarf or anything like that. It's like, what's wrong with something new and original and interesting? Why does it have to be a stereotype?
Because
you're British? Because you're British?
Is it new? Is it new and interesting?
Well, is the absolute stereotype new and interesting? No.
Well, why not? Does that teetotaler? If there are 3 things that dwarves have got in common in a game world, they're shorter than 5'4", they like ale, and they're very proud of their beards. Keep those, spin everything else off. If those are 3 defined things in the world, and you turn and say, I want to be a teetotal dwarf, or I want to shave my beard off, I want my dwarf to be 5'1". To me, it ceases to feel like a dwarf, a defined dwarf in that world. It's that whole skin suit thing again.
I think, I don't know, I'm going to disagree on this one, but that's okay. We're allowed to disagree. We're adults.
So
I do actually agree with him because I think like people nowadays are trying to be too quirky. Like they're trying too much to be quirky and different to the point where it's like silly. There's nothing wrong with that, but to a certain degree, and people usually tend to overdo it. And stereotypes are not always great. They are great when done right and when they have a certain twist to them. Uh, but to just completely throw away um, the actual, background of the character, or like make it so unrelated to the world it's in, just for the sake of being different, that's not that good, in my opinion.
Okay, but here you guys are associating an awful lot of presuppositions upon this player's character. Maybe the guy has a really cool backstory where he was really drunk one night and he fell asleep while on guard duty because he was so drunk, and as a result the caravan he was with got slaughtered by bandits and sold into slavery, and he vowed that day he's not going to drink anymore. He's going to always be there for his friends. He's going to make sure he never drops the ball again. There's lots of ways that could go. And I find that 1,000 times more interesting than, oh, yeah, I'm a dwarf. I'm here to kick your ass and drink beer. Where's the gold? Oh, what's good here, eh? Oh, they. Like, I mean, let's have some fun. Let's do something different. I mean, look, I played in a D&D game one time. No bullshit. This is college. We didn't have a thief. And one of the players said, well, let's just go kidnap a halfling. So we went and we kidnapped a halfling. And basically forced him to be our thief. Yeah, I wasn't a thief.
Well, one thing in against the cult of the reptile gods, the town of Orlane has their own special wine they make with their locally grown grapes, and everybody that drinks it, you're supposed to roll a percentage, and if they get below a certain thing, that's the best drink they've ever tasted in their life. Well, the dwarf in our party missed his save, if you want to call it that, so he thinks that wine is the best alcoholic beverage he's ever tasted. So he's going to have cravings for. He doesn't realize it yet, but he got a one-shot addiction, and he's going to have cravings to go back to Orlane and get more of their wine because that's now his favorite alcohol.
Not wrong with that. Not wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so shocked that we disagree, John. It's we never disagree, you and I. We're always in lockstep.
Good evening, Elfbait. Good evening, Daniel.
Hello.
I believe from your comments in chat that you disagree with me as well, Elfbait.
Very much so.
Go on then.
Honestly, let players play what they're going to play. I agree with Bear there on the amount of presuppositions being made. I think that the teetotaling dwarf example, just to ride with that, he said what I was going to say, basically, or what I was thinking, and that there's so much more that could go with that character, with that basic tweak. Just like the value of stereotypes is that they are a short form for a race, class, culture. That guy's teetotaler pitch to you when he makes his character is the short form. It's not the be-all, end-all of his character. Now, if it becomes an annoying, repetitious sort of a catchphrase, basically, for that character, becomes his shtick, and there's nothing more to it, that could be annoying and frustrating, but so is the stereotypical dwarf, to be honest. Dwarf gets drunk and is getting into trouble because of it becomes frustrating very fast.
What I prefer from that sort of scenario would be a dwarf saying, I can never consume enough ale to get myself drunk. Must have been a bad pint or someone put something in it. I'm going to swear revenge on that brewer.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what works for you.
It's what works for me.
It's what works.
It feels more dwarf-like.
And at the same time, it's not what works for everybody else, and it's not going to work necessarily. I mean, I would if somebody came to me and says I have a dwarf who doesn't drink, I'm going to ask him, all right, give me more.
Why doesn't he drink?
Yeah, what's the? Also, I really feel like that's sort of it's sort of a baseless argument in that, and I'm not trying to insult you or anything like here, but very rarely have I ever encountered a player who comes to me like, this is my character, and this is the be-all, end-all of my character, and this is the only thing that there is ever about my character is all wrapped up into this whole teetotally thing. It's an example that, you know, stands out, obviously, but at the same time, I don't think it's representative of anything people generally play. You know,
See,
I mean,
I have seen a player want to play a specific type of character, and when told no, attempt to derail them, have a hissy fit and attempt to derail the campaign.
okay. I can unpack that.
I've seen a bunch of that.
Did you tell him no, and how often does that happen? And
I
if he
told
had
him-
a chance to actually play the character he wanted to play, could it have been better?
I specifically said it was a short-term fill-in campaign. I'd like to have a generally good-leaning party who are willing to help.
Well, that's just a player being a dick, though. That has nothing to do
And
with
then,
Yeah.
so
somebody
he sent me,
who
sent me a
thinks
character.
that they can be the Bilbo in the All Dwarf campaign.
He sent me a character which was a chaotic evil paladin of vengeance.
Okay, so I'm starting to
Right,
think
and I
this
went,
might be
no.
a British trait because there was a guy we used to play with in Vancouver. If you were to set your he was from England. And we used to say your campaign, okay, we're doing a campaign. There are no elf PCs. Elves exist in the world, but you're not allowed to play one. He would definitely come to you with a character of an elf saying, oh, hear me out. I want you to understand that it's a good idea. And I want you to hear it before you say that out. So I think this is maybe a British trait, John. And we're talking about stereotypes.
I'm just going to chime in now and say that player was Australian.
Oh,
He lived in Britain, but he was Australian.
get fucked.
It's a color.
Too right, he's Australian. D&D,
But,
it's Australian for fun.
I mean, I've run into those players before too, and you know, generally speaking, but that has little to do with the problem with those players has very little to do with their character concept. Well, let me back up. Has very little to do with the stereotype of their character concept and their inability to follow the notes set out at the head of the at the front of the campaign. They fail to read the program and come to the table with something that is, you know, just non-fitting. I've run into this myself, you know, hey, we're going to do this really cool, like, you know, dark fantasy game, and you want to play this stupid giggling jester character who has, you know, fart jokes his way through the campaign. Now, granted, that still could work if you presented him in a fashion that fit the campaign, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always I lean towards letting players play what they want to play as long as it fits the setting. And if their character concept becomes frustrating and annoying, then we have a talk because we're people and we're adults and we discuss the things.
Well,
We
the
have
rest
a
of us
yell.
had a talk with
So-
the player.
I've never yelled at anybody.
The rest of us had a talk with this particular player after he tried to derail the entire game by making an unwilling adventurer who just sat down and did fuck all, who tried to torture young girls despite saying that he was a neutral good, and blamed it on having a low wisdom. And we were like, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do this. We had a chat with him and we kicked him out at the end.
Yeah,
I'll
that
be
doesn't
right
sound
back.
like a guy trying
So-
to role play. That sounds like a guy working out his fucking issues.
Yeah, we think he was.
That's
We
fair.
think he
That's
was.
a good
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of stereotypes, stereotypical troll, you know,
Yeah, I was
he
thinking the
wasn't-
same thing, Slan. Like
They're-
the person who wants to derail the adventure by picking a character that's way left field is a stereotype in itself of
So-
a person.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah,
There's
I,
an NPC in my game that has a very low wisdom, and he also has a very low charisma, and that's how in that particular character, that explains his low charisma. He's basically fairly high or well along on the autistic spectrum. So he will say things that are not mean, just really inappropriate. he'll go up to someone and say, "Gee, you have a lot of hair in your nose," or something like that. So his that lowers his charisma because he just doesn't fit in socially. It's not that he's might not have the potential to have some leadership qualities. It's just he does not have the wisdom to read the room. So that's how.
I know
That's a
lots
good
of people
example.
like that.
Well, and that's the thing. I've worked with a lot of autistic patients. So I mean, and you'd be kind of embarrassed to take them out with your friends just because they're going to say goofball stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it's not.
Say what they see. They have no filter.
Yeah.
That honestly would be me. My
And
wife
he's
is
not
like,
autistic. He's just
And
Daniel.
me.
yeah.
Daniel is Daniel.
Daniel,
So,
Daniel.
what safe? I mean, what do you want to? If you've defined in your world what makes a dwarf feel like a dwarf, how do you then reconcile a character that wants to do something slightly different? Because if they're no longer feeling like a dwarf,
Maybe they were adopted, their clan got destroyed, and they had to move on and go live.
but
I find. Oh, good.
when the player is role playing that character, and it's not conjuring that picture in the mind of what you picture a dwarf to be, doesn't that affect how you feel about the game as it goes on? It does with me.
Oh.
I find it really weird that in a hobby full of people who are very different minded and who are very on the outs and very exceptional in their communities, that it's such a hard concept to understand exceptions in games.
Now, in my world, and this is just specific with my campaign, demi-humans are very rare. In the village where the player started, there is one elf who has a human wife. So if they had the option to play a half elf, but they would only ever get to play one half elf ever because it was one of their children. So a lot of the demi-humans that they meet are going to be, I don't want to say it's at a disadvantage, but they're going to be culturally different than a dwarf that was raised in the caves, because they've lived most of their lives around humans, just because of the cataclysm that happened and rendered a lot of their homelands unlivable.
Yeah, I mean, and to answer your question directly, in my games, I don't generally have stereotyped kind of species. I mean, there are certain things that characterize dwarves as a whole. That's more biology. But the dwarves that are in my 5th edition campaign, the dwarves that are local to the area are not the same culture as the dwarves outside that region. Within that region, there are 2 groups of wood elves that are very distinctly different culturally, even though they're both technically wood elves. Yeah.
In my campaign, there's a very strong stereotype, which is that humans are racist pricks who don't understand non-humans and pigeonhole them. So, I mean, there you go, right? Like, that's the whole point. I'm not being an asshole, but I'm saying, like, it's literally baked into the history of the world, the amount of times that humans have fucked over the non-human races, and just humans don't give them any regard, to the point where there's some groups that are second-class citizens or even below that within human society, and they kind of have to make do as best they can because the humans have this view of them, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's the player playing the character is what's going to make me see the character, not some preconceived notion I have about what a dwarf or an elf or a halfling is. My favorite dwarf ever in media is Gimli in the Lord of the Rings animated film by Ralph Bakshi, where he's just very pragmatic. He's very down to earth. He feels like a woodsman. He feels like a guy who works with his hands. My least favorite dwarf in popular media is Gimli in the Peter Jackson films, because he's an overblown stereotype comedy character. When you read those books, Gimli is not comedy. The dwarves are not a joke. You know what I mean? They're very serious people. They're very interesting people. And I honestly think Gimli and Legolas both got done dirty by those movies, because they are stereotypes. They're presented as stereotypes, and they're boring as a result. And it's a shame, because they're both very interesting characters.
Well, and if you think about the dwarves in Tolkien, they were brought to life first, but then they were told, no, it's too early. The other races have to come first. So they had to basically get put back in suspended animation, for lack of a better term, so they could have some long-standing historical resentment, a chip on their shoulder, or even a type of inferiority complex. How come we had to wait? I mean, there are so many things more than just being the comedic foil that race could be.
Gimli in the Lord of the Rings does, in even the Peter Jackson films, does start with a bit of that chip on his shoulder, and part of the story is him removing that chip.
So I was looking at that comment and trying to figure out what the fuck it's
Yeah,
about.
same here.
Bots.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
got to be a bot.
I don't have any kids. Can I eat somebody else's?
Oh, yeah, good point. Are cats allowed? Can I eat my cats? Though they're probably going to eat me, really, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Cat,
But-
the other white meat.
So I don't
And
understand.
long
If we're going to be branded with a barcode for $32,000, does that mean they pay us $32,000 for us to be branded, or do we have to pay $32,000
I think
to
we
get
pay,
the brand?
I think we pay for the brand, we get the mark of the beast, and then we get to go buy product at the market, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah,
It's a very odd number. It's not
It
very
is a
branded.
yeah.
I bet if you add it all up, it somehow comes up to 666, right? With some
It's a palindrome.
It's like my brother and I were out shopping
Yeah.
For gaming stuff the other day, and he found a game that professed to be playable in 21 minutes. Like, that's a very specific number. I'm like,
Islam oil banks. Oh my god, I got to invest.
Jesus.
I just
What
had to have
a
32,000. How much was it again?
$32,523. It was a
Yeah.
palindrome, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he should be gone now.
Hopefully,
Yep.
thank you. My goodness.
Thank you.
He should be gone.
But now there was a stereotype that just wandered into our thing, right? It was spouting all of that evangelical, paranoid conspiracy stuff that we see in a lot of places. So there was an example of a stereotype.
And
Now, if
see,
you
as
play
a
that
very
character-
devout churchgoer, I kind of laugh when I see things like that. It's
Yeah,
like, well,
me too.
you are wrong on every aspect of life.
But this is the thing, right? So this
Yeah.
is the point of, if you're going to use stereotypes, at least use them for everybody involved with it, right? But if you're just going to be lazy, well, then it's not even a stereotype anymore. It's just ignorance at that point in time. It's just you going to the lowest common denominator, and that's boring.
True. That's the same with trying to be different. I mean, if you're gonna be different, that's fine, but you gotta think of a reason for that. Like the idea of the dwarf that everyone died because he got too drunk that one night. That's a really good idea. It's being different done right. But some people don't go that far.
Now, I have a question. Mainly, it would be for John and Slan. Am I playing Angus the way he should be played, or do I need to make adjustments? I'm not going to make adjustments. I'm just asking.
No, I think he's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I see him as a dwarf.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, it's different for everyone at the table. We all have different pictures of what things should be. I think it's up to the DM to define what a race the base for a race should be like. But so my issue with all of this is I play most of my games entirely theatre of the mind. I'm not particularly interested in visual representations of characters, anything like that. What I want is a verbal representation through the role play, and that's where it jars for me when the image, if I'm running a game of somebody trying to break what I as DM lay down as typical dwarf stuff by too much, no longer makes
And for
that
no good
character
reason.
feel like a dwarf. For no good reason. Yeah.
For
No longer
me,
makes the character feel like a dwarf.
For me, it always comes down to this, though. The player characters are the best place for exceptions to exist because they are the standouts. everybody else can be the stereotypical dwarf if you want in your campaign, but your player character deciding to be something different from the norm is about 50% of all literary and movie characters, for that matter. I mean, there's a good number of them that are the normal guy who is called to, or the paragon of blah, blah, blah. But the other half of them are, I am not like my other people. We can go back to, the basics, like Bilbo. Bilbo is different from other hobbits because he's got a bit of a wanderlust,
Yeah.
Conan.
He still
one
has
thing that's
the stereotypical fat belly, hairy feet, love of food, second breakfast, all that sort of thing.
Yes, he does.
Still has
But
all of
he
that.
has something that makes him different that is
Wanderlust.
unexplainable, and it gets defined during the course of the game or the story.
Yeah. So the way I see it is, if you've defined any given race with only one stereotypical trait, then you've defined that race wrong. You've not given it a field. You've given it a point. Yeah.
And brothers.
I also prefer to run stereotypes in gameplay, not in actual role play.
But what I mean is, you're going to say, dwarves or elves or Githyanki or whatever tend to behave in these particular ways, and you should list at least 4, 5, or 6 traits, and then your player character will start in that area, and then he can deviate from it in one direction. But if you play a dwarf that's a teetotaler, and he doesn't like mining, and he doesn't and all the typical dwarf things he doesn't go for, then why are you playing a dwarf? At one point, people who are eccentric and different, they're usually eccentric in one, maybe 2 ways. And often if it's 2 ways, it's actually one way that's related and manifests itself in 2 different ways. And I think I like to start with the stereotype, but then I find, like, how can I make this different in one way? But then the stuff that you sort of gloss over will be fairly in the typical range of what dwarves will do, or what elves will do, or Githyanki or whatever.
I'm with you there, Stan. Yeah.
I like what you're saying about that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it personal then. I'm Canadian. I'm not polite.
I won't
I
hold
don't like hockey. I don't drink beer. Maple syrup annoys the shit out of me. Poutine I can't eat anymore because I'm diabetic.
You're human. Humans exist in all forms.
Why can't dwarves? Why can't elves? Why does every dwarf colony have to be exactly like the other dwarf colony? Why does every
don't have to be
enclave have to be exactly like the others?
That's where the nuances come in.
The character making the teetotaler is the nuance, because he's a PC. He's one individual amongst his people.
Yeah.
And and yes, your extreme example of that's all he does with his character is such a rarity, though. And, people want to reel against the exceptional character. Well, the exceptional character, the PCs are supposed to be the exceptional characters. That's why all the other 7th, 10th level NPCs in the world aren't out there doing anything about the problems in the campaign world.
But as Slan was saying, though, take one aspect, make that different to make him unique.
Okay.
But keep the others.
Bear, I will add. That's
it.
Bear, I will add.
My spot would be one that Mark Hoffman would like, because I thought of "Let This Be Our Last Battlefield." I think that's the episode from the original Star Trek. Well, but they're black on the left half and white on the right. We're black on the right side and white on the left. So your dwarves, they part their beard on the left. We part ours on the right. We're totally different from them.
I mean, to be fair, though, that was a TV character for a 1960s TV audience.
Listen, there's one group of dwarves in my world. They don't have beards. They have big asterisk style mustaches. That's their thing. They're into having these big, beautiful mustaches. You know what I mean? Like, why? Stereotypes are boring.
Thing is that to me feels fine, because they're still very proud of their facial hair.
Okay, but so what? Why can't one of them be a teetotaler and just say, I'm not into drinking. It's not my thing.
As long as he
we didn't say he can't. We didn't say he can't.
I think we're getting too bogged down on the specifics. I think if it just has a reasonable world explanation, then it should be all right, no?
Well, and that's the thing.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me put it this way. As long as it's possible for the world that the character is in, and it has a reason why that character is different, that is completely fine. But for example, and I'll throw in a quick thing. I had a campaign with orcs in it, and these orcs were like World of Warcraft type orcs, where they're all about honor and all of that stuff. Then I had this character, this girl, this player. She wanted to play this character who's a female orc, and she's the daughter of the chief. But she acted like a middle-aged white woman. Come on, tell me that this is not wrong. Come
I
on,
want to see it. No, I want to see the Karen Kling orc. That sounds awesome.
like come on. But it
I
made
want
no
to see your
sense.
manager immediately.
Jennifer Aniston.
That a matter of character concept. No one thinks that bad player.
I love this idea. I'm putting this idea in my campaign, man. That's great. I love
Yeah,
this
but
idea.
it had
You know,
like no
stomping around,
explanation.
being rude. I think it's great.
Well, I mean, a lot of characters don't have any explanation. How many people playing fighters can say why their fighter is fightering?
I was a soldier and now I'm no longer a soldier. Okay, thanks for that exciting.
Or the thief.
reflection.
How many thieves have a compelling, deep reason for why they're a thief?
Yeah.
I mean,
But that being the stereotype means it doesn't need an explanation, right?
All
What's
right,
the
look,
nuance that needs the explanation?
Let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room and get it over with.
Hey, I've
Horny
lost weight.
bards. Horny bards are what we're really talking about.
I've never won in a game, so I've never run into the stereotype.
Shut up, Eli. You're making this hard.
Oh no, I am told by many others that it's out there and exists. I've also never seen Bigfoot, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Aren't we all supposed to be 1 foot in the Bigfoot?
I always thought
Stereotypes?
that type of bards came from the 60s and 70s hippies musicians. They're trying to emulate that instead of trying to emulate the skalds of old, like a true bard should be.
They want to be David Bowie, don't they?
They want to be guitar guy at the party until John Belushi smashes their guitar.
I gave my love a
Cherry that had no phone. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, brilliant moment.
I mean, I've read a lot about the horny bards, and I've, as far as I know, it came in really with a vengeance around 3rd edition, with the sort of the advent of the heavy advent of skill checks and wanting to persuade every barmaid to sleep with the bard or whatever.
Earlier.
Yep, that's how it works. Make a skill check, morals go right out the fucking window. That's how that works. I made my skill check. She has to fuck me now. Like,
there were people who who have talked about the game being played that way. I certainly have never played the game that way.
Well, and that's when my grumpy dwarf would bard block him.
Yes, but wouldn't he be drunk while he's doing it and speaking in a Scottish accent? Otherwise, John's not having it, sir.
I'm from America. I don't speak in any accents.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Okay, I can do.
Of
I can do
course not.
Southern. I can do
I'm in
Uber.
a situation with that. I actually, I live in Missouri now, and I was talking to somebody with a seriously heavy Missouri accent, and I could understand them, but they couldn't understand the damn thing I was saying. Like, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm speaking very clearly without the Southern drawl. I don't. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. There might be a little bit of moss in my throat, but
I drop any of you in the deepest, darkest part of Newfoundland, and you won't be able to feed yourselves talking to the locals.
Oh, yeah.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
That's not a boot.
Oh, no.
That's
it was just the first time I've run into that.
That's the only one I
can't
know.
understand what you're saying. I'm like, how? But
the point is stereotypes exist for a reason. We can accept that as a truism.
Yeah.
We can also accept as a truism that characters can break stereotypes, which makes them individuals, which makes them interesting to play and interact with.
Hell, maybe I'm a sober Irishman.
You're not.
Really, you got to go there.
That's too
You're a
far.
drunk American,
I mean,
Daniel. You know.
as I said, I do think it is the player's responsibility to ensure that. I mean, if they want to make something different about their character, they can, but there must be enough familiar about the character regarding whatever race they've picked in order to make the character feel true to that race within the game world. Otherwise, what is the point other than to get bonuses? Because that's the way some people play.
To
There is a limit.
Earlier in the chat about people that are mixing races and all that, how that seems to be the thing. And yeah, I see that among kids that are trying to min-max. I mean, they're like a Margaret Sanger, Dr. Mengele type of genetic repurposing. I'm 1/8 Dragonborn and 1/2 Orc and 1/4 this and 1/32 that.
Yeah.
So I can get at least one bonus from each one of those things that has a taint in my blood somewhere, so that I can make the perfect, most powerful character that can do everything all the time. It's like, that's
half
fine.
angel, half dragon, half vampire.
Tell them that getting died, roll a new character.
Oh, you guys are playing Rifts. Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, we certainly my lot were like that when we were 13 and 14. It is a thing. Dealing as much damage as possible, getting the beefiest sword possible, getting 1800 strength in AD&D, because of course I did. Yes. My cat saw me roll or whatever. It's to me that is all part of kids being kids, and let them enjoy themselves.
No, don't let them. I never did that. Don't let them.
And that's fine. And I'm gonna make an overgeneralization. Everybody should play one character like that and just go absolutely gonzo and get it out of your system.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And once it's out of your system, we can play properly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
If we're, I want to go back to the subject of dwarves, and I think I may have said this story before. I had a dwarven warrior who was maxed out. He couldn't. He was to the point where he's getting like hit points plus Constitution every level. Got hit by a red dragon for damn near max damage. He lived through the first breath weapon. I had like 1 or 2 hit points left, and pulled up his warhammer and said, "You burnt my beard," and charged the dragon. Needless to say, I was rolling up another character.
See, I would respect that heroic way to die.
It was, "You burnt my beard." He was pissed.
And as John says, dwarves care very much about their beards.
Yep.
Mhm.
If
Maybe they
that
don't
also
in
goes
this
in with
setting.
the
Maybe in this setting they don't give a
stereotype.
shit about beards. Maybe they give a shit about their armor. Maybe they give a
I
shit
say-
about, how pretty their cat is. Like, I mean, there's room to do different things, guys.
Well,
it's
yeah.
defined by the setting, though. It's
Yes.
defined
No,
by the setting.
I agree with Bear on that too. Like, I had a,
I agree. I agree with Ben that
You
it's defined
say-
by the-
That's it.
You say you agree with Bear, yet you still run headfirst into the dragon.
yeah. Well, no, I had a halfling war cleric.
Okay.
That's the last thing you would expect. Yeah, everybody thinks halfling. Oh, it's a thief. No, I had a halfling war cleric.
Yours was an Irish Catholic priest. Okay.
I'm just glad you didn't say you had a gnome barbarian.
There you go.
Why not? Why not have gnome barbarians?
Because I certainly, if I'm creating a world, barbarian is almost a race of their own. They're a variant human race, and maybe they might have a little bit of orcish blood somewhere in their lineage, but that's it.
Wow. You can get help, John.
I
There's
don't want to
therapy
get help.
available for your
I
bigotry.
don't want to get help.
Oh my
I don't want to get
god.
help.
That was
I
funny.
don't want to get help. But no, I mean, it's. I think the emphasis is on the DM to come up with a world. I know today's gaming worlds. Yes, my big issue is everyone doesn't like playing the exact way that I do, and I'm always right, Kabuki Kid. I'm always right because this is my channel. So there. And this is my birthday stream, and I'm having a few red wines, and I'm here.
I'll cry
I'm here
if I
to-
want to. Cry if I want
Absolutely, absolutely.
to. All right, Dolly.
But no, I get that different groups play differently. Certainly, with the Forgotten Realms being a great big melting pot that it is nowadays, where anyone they emphasize that anyone can be anything. I think there is a lot lost in that setting, because I think a lot of races have lost their authenticity.
I agree. Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a world should feel.
It's not so grounded anymore.
Not exactly, not so grounded. And I like grounded. I'm sorry, people like high fantasy. I'm not a big high fantasy fan. I like grounded, and that's just the way I am.
Yeah, I guess you can't blame us. We like boring stuff.
Yeah, I'm boring. Everybody in chat, I'm boring.
Well,
Yeah. Boo us. Sue us.
Okay,
We'll
so
remain the same.
orcs back into their caves. What's the next stereotype on the list? Pig-faced orcs?
can't
Absolutely.
stand him personally.
That,
What about
If we're
paladins?
talking NPC stereotypes, damsel in distress.
Oh my god! Don't even go there.
All
I mean,
let's put
the
let's put
kidnap-
coin
I
on
thought
that.
people stopped using it nowadays. I thought
Yeah, that's
people
the
stopped
opposite
using it.
is also annoying as fuck. The strong whammon
Yeah.
who can do anything
Yeah,
and
the
doesn't need
strong
the hero.
woman.
True, very true.
Yeah,
That's exhausting
the
too.
strong woman that makes you the damsel in distress.
Oh wait, what was that? Sorry. Ask him
Somebody's
I said-
preaching the message in there. I heard him.
Mhm.
Cheers, G Master G. Thank you very, very much.
I believe that's J
And-
Meister G. G Meister. Meister?
Mister.
Meister?
A
Meister?
E.
Meister.
Maester.
As in-
That's Meister.
Meister.
That's G
As in-
Master G.
Meister.
Caesar, how about encyclopedia? The English spelling of encyclopedia is with an AE.
No one cares.
So it'd be G Mister.
You've lost control of your language.
Yeah, that's true. But then you have words like cough through, bow.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
you
I
don't
know.
play this
Almost
game,
like
John.
language changes over time.
It's almost like most of the English.
No,
language is made up by
no,
a
you
crazy
can't allow it.
playwright.
You can't allow it. You can't allow
The
changes.
English that your people espouse as being so perfect isn't the original version of that language, anyways.
Where's the mute Eli button? Where's the mute? I won't have it. I won't have it.
Listen. I've been agreeing with Eli way too much on this stream. It's starting to scare me.
You know why? Because I came to fight.
Because what?
You know why it is? Because I came to fight.
Oh, okay.
Saying about
He
those
woke
two
up and
female
chose
stereotypes.
violence.
Are we fighting?
Saying about those
No,
two
not
female
fight with you.
stereotypes.
No, I meant in this chat.
Yeah, okay. Ignore me.
No, I'm just joking.
Sorry, John. We're just ignoring you now and
Completely
having
ignore me.
fun.
Completely ignore me. Yeah. Saying about those two female stereotypes: the damsel in distress and the big strong woman who doesn't need any man type stereotype.
How
The two-
about the ditzy blonde?
ditzy blonde? Yep. How about just play them as a woman?
How about guys who, when they're allowed to play women, don't immediately make them all lesbians? That would be neat.
Yeah. How about just play them as a woman? We all know women, don't we?
That's something that's
No,
never
women
come
are
up on our
monsters.
game.
I'm certainly. I mean, I'm married to one. I think I know a woman.
Go to a
At least I
lesbian?
assume I do.
Well, to be fair, most players can't win any good either. So
Yeah, that's fair.
any good can't play it that well. I've evidently lost all my English. So there you go, John. But
And you don't even speak English good.
I speak English good now better.
I mean, guys, we know that
Weird
you know the
female played by a
damn.
male, actually.
ahead,
I
man.
was saying that we know the damsel in distress is an overused stereotype that's everyone is bored of, even the people who do the strong whamming character. They're all bored of it. Even we are bored of it. But how to do it right? That's the question, because nobody seems to know.
Oh, it's very easy. Watch Terminator 2, watch Terminator, watch Alien, watch Aliens, and there's some great role models for you in action.
Yeah,
That's true. Terminator 2, Sarah Connor is pretty epic.
Oh, even better though, Terminator 1, where she's not this badass who's been training to be a badass all her life, but she becomes a badass by going through a harrowing experience.
That is true. But, well, how to do like a woman that
she
needs
learns
help?
how to do it. She doesn't drop into the scene automatically being the master of everything she puts her eyes on. That's what gets me.
True. Yeah. Yeah. True.
Go away, Ray Skywalker, whatever the heck your last name is. This
Ray.
movie.
Palpatine.
Palpatine.
Yeah.
Ray
Palpatine.
Palpatine.
It's almost
Actually, a
as
good
if,
Darth
example.
Ray.
it's almost as if we should let characters develop.
Oh,
how about,
almost.
How about starting with a baseline
Oh my lord!
and allowing the characters to develop?
Well, let's
Oh,
take,
yeah.
let's
Can
take-
be.
let's take the Bilbo. Let's take the Bilbo as a perfect example because someone pointed this out. And Eli had already said it as well. The whole idea is he starts out as a hobbit, but then realizes he has a wanderlust, goes out into the world, does all these things, and realizes, you know what, I actually do love home, and I do love the things and the tilled earth and the food and all that. But then he goes back there, and there's this ghost in his ear constantly going, there's mountains. Go to the mountains. So he spends all of his life regretting giving into his stereotypes, and then when he finally has enough, off he goes back out into his final great quest, which winds up just being tea at Rivendell. But the point is that it's there. You can do these types of things, but it requires good role playing, good GMing, good gaming. Like all those things
and a willingness to start with a pretty basic character. I think one of the biggest things that people are doing nowadays is overwriting their character.
Correct. Correct.
I mean, have a good concept of who your character is, definitely, but trying to define them too specifically up front is harmful to the overall gaming experience, both for you, the person playing the character, and everybody else at the table, because that's where you get into those arguments of, oh, that's not what, but that doesn't fit my character's plan. That's not that I don't like this game because you're not DMing my character right. Whatever, roll with it. I mean, you want to talk about stereotypes. One of the stereotypes I've completely given up on and on a personal crusade against is the tragic backstory for my character. I refuse to write one anymore.
Tragic equals no parents.
Let
the
tragedy happen during the game.
Well,
that makes it feel so much more natural if it happens during the game.
Or even the need for tragedy is overplayed. I don't need to have my character have tragedy occur in their life to have an interesting character. My last few characters I've played have all had happy home lives. They've left them for other reasons other than tragedy.
Hello.
That sounds more interesting.
I come from a perfectly well-adjusted family in a nice town. We were never attacked by orcs or nothing, but it's rather poor because it is the medieval times and we are peasants. Therefore, I've decided to pick up this here X and go make money.
Exactly.
I'm excited
That's
to be
more
adventuring with you today. How is it? I am Stilgar, knife thrower. My parents were murdered by Drow. You should really get some therapy, mate. I think it would help you a lot.
I mean, I had one character I was playing. He's a nobleman. He's the low man. He's like the youngest of 5 brothers, so he's going to get nothing, except for maybe a comfortable life, living with his parents. His grandfather liked him, so he made sure he had a good sword teacher, and now he's out in the world trying to make a name for himself. That was his background. His grandfather was alive. His grandmother had died of natural causes. His father and mother were alive. His sister, his brothers were alive. He was just low man on the nobleman's totem pole. And the next character I made was a thief who grew up in a town where he realized that thievery was a way that he could actually help support his big family. They had a business. They were kind of mid-range mercantile family. But you know what? Stealing stuff made sure that they could afford the medicine and not have to, scrimp and save, or, they could, have a little bit of extra meat on the table. And then he got good as a thief. And that's now he's a thief. My last wizard character, the only tragedy was coming home from an errand and finding out that his master had left and was gone and never came back. And like, well, I guess I got to go find him. Simple things that allow
went for a pack
What?
Went for a pack of cigarettes at the corner store.
I'm gonna get some pipe weed. I'll be back in a minute. And they never saw him again.
He got into
That's
wizard
funny.
trouble, but that was undefined what wizard trouble he got into, but it was a motivation for my first level wizard to start wizarding on his own.
Plagiarizing spells, apparently. That was what he got in trouble for. He was copying other people's spells and presenting them as his own.
There you go.
Right out of
I
wizard
think-
college.
Now you
Mr. G
can play
makes-
against the stereotype and have fun with it though, because in the last Conan game I was in, I was a minor noble from Kitai. I had some land, but was never going to get any type of authority or anything because I had so many older brothers. Well, in that, I don't even remember which edition of Conan that was, but one of the biggest things we would get in treasure is slaves. We'd rescue slaves from wherever, and they became our slaves. Well, my character did not believe in slavery, so any slaves that were part of his share of the treasure, he sent back to his homeland and basically set up a farmstead act. If you plot out 10 acres and make that 10 acres productive for 5 years, you will become you will own that land and just have to pay a certain amount of tax to me that I then give to my father, which in the long run was supposed to set me up in a better position than my brothers, so I could usurp them and become the number one heir. But that was the long game. But by having that in a world where everybody owns slaves, that one thing that went against that norm is what made that character unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine going back
That
to
was
the
done right.
Yeah, imagine going back to the dwarf example, though, the teetotaler dwarf. To continue. No, I'm just saying to continue the thread on that, right? That's a basic concept that starts out at the top of the game, and as the campaign goes on, then he gets a reputation. People start knowing him for that. Like, there's this dwarf who comes around to town every once in a while, refuses a drop of ale, but he's a badass. You might want to look him up, kind of a thing.
I think the key, going back to the idea of having keep things simple at the start. I like characters to be very simple at the start. I don't like backstories of anything more than a couple of lines at most. But I like to see characters react and grow based on their experiences at the table. Because only those experiences at the table, as far as I'm concerned, are the ones that matter. I couldn't give a rat's ass what happened to your character before the game started. I want to see them react to the events of the game itself. And that to me is a sign of a good role player who develops their character based on those experiences that we all experience at the table.
True.
Didn't you tell me a story the other day about a guy who wrote like a full 2-page backstory in his characters and what you did to him? Or was that someone else?
I think it'd be somebody else.
We've probably all had that happen.
I feel like it was you.
I once had a player who pitched a really, really amazingly interesting new character concept to me, and then when we got to the table, he didn't play that at all. It was just the same bland old archetype of that character that he ever played, and that you would ever see played. Like, that was really annoying. I'm like, oh, your character idea was really cool. Where is he?
Yeah.
I think I like the fact that G Master G is mentioning Merp here, but Merp has got little racial tendencies for all of the races. The idea is that the player leans into those tendencies. They don't have to. If it says your tendency arrogant, doesn't mean they have to be utterly arrogant all the time. But if you just got a hint of arrogance in the way your character acts, it still fits into it. I think Merp is very flavorful in that sense, but it is written specifically based on Tolkien's imagining of his races.
Yeah.
And if you're playing a defined setting like that, you've got a bit of a responsibility to stick with the source material.
I also think it's important to remember that, like, in D&D, almost all of the source material in D&D is written from a very human point of view.
Yeah.
And so you could almost say that what we're seeing in those write-ups is not the actuality of those races. It's just how humans perceive them. Elves may not necessarily be arrogant. They could be, but they're just so alien in their personality that humans read them as arrogant because they don't care, because really, what is, they're so timeless that it doesn't matter. So yes, they seem aloof and arrogant, but it's not that in the human sense. It's just that's what humans see them as. So there's also your wiggle room for playing around with non-stereotype type characters. It's like, yes, this is the stereotype that people have of me as a dwarf, but did you know that there's actually this weird little, clutch of us amongst the elves who think a little differently, or maybe that's not how we all think. That's just the ones that dealt with, kind of a thing. I mean, and that's how you could explore as a player character. You could explore those differences, but it comes out. I think those exceptions are better when they're developed in play as opposed to just laid out up front. I mean, you kind of have to have a baseline, but keep it simple.
True. I mean, I don't think we are disagreeing as much as we made it to be. Like, we pretty much agree on most of the stuff.
That's how it usually is around here.
We just had to argue for some reason.
Well, no, I mean, a good argument is important in of itself. I mean, this is a very boring stream if we're all just going, yep, thumbs up.
Well, it's
Yeah,
not an
exactly.
argument, it's a conversation. There is a difference. But, and yes, you do need your stereotypes, but I think it was Bear that said you can do your character. Maybe it was somebody else. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But you don't have to be that stereotype. Like he was saying, the elves seem aloof, but when you live for 1,200 years, your 60 years of existence means nothing to me.
Yeah, like why would an elf have absolutely any care what a human has to think on the big picture of things? Because what does your experience really count for? Yeah,
maybe it was elf that said, but that's exactly what it is. You lived for 60 years, dude. I'm 500. Screw you.
I was still in elf diapers at 60 years.
Yeah.
If the player tries to, if a player tries to push against stereotypes, I feel it's almost my responsibility as DM to restore the balance using NPCs and other using examples of the race they might meet, because otherwise I think the race might lose its place in the world in terms of it's. I mean, I might just be grouchy because a player doing that just gives me more work to do. But,
well, and I think you can do what you're saying.
Control your world.
You can do what you're talking about. But you can do it in a constructive way. You don't have to necessarily be slapping the player down with the NPCs all the time to put him back in his racial place. You could always have people remark like, "Wow, you're the first dwarf I've ever met who would turn down a drop of ale. You're a quirky fellow, ha ha ha," kind of a thing, and draw it out that way too. You don't have to have it be like, "What kind of repugnant creature are you who refuses a drop of ale?" And you have to harp on that one because it's a good through thread through the whole argument, through the whole video. But I'm not trying to pick on your example. It's just it's a good one. It's a good baseline to use. As we come back to it, that way it's consistent. But you can build, you can reinforce those stereotypes in your game if it's important to you to have them in both the positive and the negative, reinforcement matter. I mean, yes, it could come back to haunt the player that is not playing like it's people, because like maybe he visits the local elf group and they're like, "You are weird. We want nothing to do with you." But at the same time, maybe his being different does stand out, but it's an advantage, and you can play to that as well. I don't think you have to necessarily put them in their place, so to speak.
I think certainly. I mean, I'm turning the argument around a little bit from where my argument at start, because I mean, I'm partly here to cause arguments tonight. I think I
Yeah,
will
let's
admit
fight.
that now. I will admit that now. But I think is there any time when you as DMs have used a racial stereotype against a player,
Yes.
against a character?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
I don't play modern games, so no.
Well, yeah.
Why is
I
that a
have
modern
it
thing?
No,
against
I don't think so.
not against my family since they're just starting out, and I don't want to discourage them. But back when I would run, yeah, I would do that. Call me racist. I don't care, but yeah, I would.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
give
fine.
an example. When I was running the 2 joined scenarios, Master of the Desert Nomads and Temple of Death, X4 and X5. And in X5, it talks about the land of Thule, and but it doesn't give a lot of specifics. But it makes it out to be quite a dictatorial theocracy. But beyond that, it doesn't really say a great deal. So I was thinking, well, they're nearly all human there. It's a dictatorial theocracy. They're going to have attitudes towards other races, other peoples. So I had them using elves as slaves. And the party had an elf character in it. And it actually made for a very, very interesting couple of sessions when, in order to enter the town, they had to remove all weapons and armor from the elf character and muzzle him so that he could not speak and use his twisting magical words to ensorcel them.
I mean, that's just setting tone and setting.
Yeah.
That's one place in your world that has a particularly severe attitude towards demi-humans. It is because that never happens in the real world, right?
Yeah.
No, of course not. No, never. No.
No, I mean, I use stereotypes. I mean, honestly, Grumpy can attest to this. Look at my By the Sword game. A lot of NPCs they run into are described and defined by where they're from, because they're in a multicultural city. They're running into all these different people that are there. And so a lot of times I'm like, you'll see a bunch of Caravosans and they're doing this, that, and the other, and they're acting very, it's very much coming up that certain the groups that they're running into. Now, granted, they're not running into Ma and Pa Caravosan. They're running into Caravosan sailors who are, of course, fitting the mold for the stereotype of Caravosan sailors. They've not gone to Caravosa yet. Maybe they're perfectly nice people, but they're in a foreign port where everybody's bumping elbows and getting in trouble and fighting, and it's the space they're in, and it's just good shorthand. Half the party is all Norsemen in this game, and so everybody who walks by them looks at them like, "Are you going to sell me something or try to steal my stuff?" Yeah, because that's their 2 things that they're known for: trade and banditry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I do use them.
I think it's something you can really use to enhance the storyline of a game
And make it more realistic.
Make the players have a reason to hate certain people. Make bad guys really genuinely bad, because these are unpleasant traits. These are things that can define a bad guy. I've seen it written before on message boards that if a DM uses any of these and listed a load of unpleasant things to define their bad guys, then that DM is just projecting what they want. That DM is projecting their own personality, and that really incensed me to read that sort of thing.
I get accused of that every now and then, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think like most things that gets posted out on the internet that is devoid of any nuance.
Yeah.
And it exists in a vacuum in and of itself. Like most of the arguments against rules, against subsets, people wanting to tear things out of games.
I dream of sending all these people a pot of gray paint.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of these arguments, they exist, and they're only a good argument in their own isolation, though. And sure, that list of things that he's presenting there, if a DM leans into enough of them, probably a red flag. Like my brother was telling me the other day that he actually.
I think it depends how it's done as well, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, my brother was telling me about a real horror story of his. We were out hanging out on Monday. I actually got to finally hang out with my brother for a while. He lives locally, and so he's telling me about this time he went to he got invited to a Star Wars game where they were playing an Imperial campaign, and he had invited his friend who was a huge Star Wars fan, who was this wonderful black woman, only to find out that the GM was like not only racist but literally in the KKK. Leaning into it through the game. Leaning into it through his game. Like when he was playing an Empire campaign, he was playing the Empire in the worst way that you could possibly think of it. Not the pulpy, stereotypical, space Nazi kind of way, but he was definitely playing it for keeps. And yeah, those exist, just like the lecherous DM who uses the table as an excuse to try and get creepy with girls. They exist.
Yeah.
Now, so yeah, I mean, there are extremes in any case, but it's how you play.
They're pretty obvious.
Rich, I'm going to respond to this. Richard asked there, how do you handle it when a player has a negative reaction to your stereotypes? Given that I have a very thick skin when it comes to gaming. I accept that, and I sometimes expect a similarly thick skin from my players. I run horror. I like horror games. Some of the things that I've described in Call of Cthulhu games, for example, have been utterly vile. Things I'd never dream of doing in real life, for God's sake. And if I think a player is being, to be honest, I would call them out for being overly sensitive, and I would say they're probably not the right sort of person for my game, because I like to have dark aspects in games I run.
Yeah.
I like to have those dark aspects, emphasize the villains. I like to have differences between the races. I like to have differentiation there to sort of almost inspire my own role playing, because I'm not naturally like that myself. So having those sort of things in the game helps guide me, helps give me something to grab hold of in order to improvise and role play myself. Because you got to remember, DM needs that sort of a firm grounding, a firm basis to develop from in terms of improvisation and their own imagination.
There's an anecdote I could retell about something like that with a friend's gaming group. This was maybe 25 years ago. And they invited somebody new to, hey, come and play D&D with us. It's fun, and we think you'd like it. And the person reacted super negatively to the fact that the society their characters were from, slavery was a thing. And instead of, maybe leaning into it and saying, well, I think it's wrong in a real world level, and so I will have my character, the character was a cleric, basically start an offshoot of our religion that claims slavery is wrong, and that's what I'm going to be preaching and trying to convert. No, that's not what the person did. They basically said, you have to remove slavery or I'm not playing. And they said, okay, then you're not playing. And if you think that means we actually approve of slavery, you're wrong. We're playing
Absolutely.
a game.
Yeah,
and in this setting, this is how it is. And I think if players react negatively to something in game, then they're not making the difference between the in-game world and the out-of-game or real world.
Yeah, and that's a big problem, man. It's a big problem when they can't differentiate between in character and out of character. Like, whenever somebody blurs the lines of that, it's really iffy. And, like, people are really sensitive nowadays.
Well,
That is
that's
true.
why I specified this was like 20, 25 years ago.
Well, people are really sensitive all
Yeah, but-
days, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
There's always going to be some
nerdy
sensitive
folks who
people.
gather in basements to roll magic dice tend to be a little on the outs. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like
Especially back in the day.
Bill says, if you need thicker skin, I've got some in the basement.
But no, I think a lot of people forget because of the nature of the world today, where I mean, to be fair, I mean, it seems like every day is kind of a fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that people are more sensitive to that, and a lot of times they forget about the fact that literary constructs, whether that or whether you're talking about verbal stories or written word or games, things like that, where we're setting up a world and we're creating spaces and places. They need bad guys. They need negativity. You need to have the dark in the game. You're ostensibly playing a game of heroes. If you're not playing, if you're playing a game of heroes, you have to have something to reel against. Not to mention, it is insane to expect a set of rules to write every single variance that could come up in a world. Like the big hissy that's going on about all orcs are evil. Oh, that's so much bullshit. No, even the earliest writings on D&D said that not all orcs are necessarily evil. The monster book says that they're evil, yes, because that's the shorthand. That's the game mechanic. That's the gamest level of the thing. Nobody back in the day had problems if you said there's this tribe of orcs that actually doesn't go around eating babies and raiding for grain all the time. Nobody had a problem. They're like, ooh, look, good orcs. This is new and interesting. It was an exception. But people forget that you have to have those things. Slavery is in the world. Okay, cool. Fight against it. Nobody's putting it in the world as to say it's great. They probably are. I won't say nobody. Most people aren't putting it in the world to say that it's great. Most people are putting it in the world for you to fight against or to color the world that your characters exist in. It's one of my biggest problems with the Conan Exiles computer game. I was playing it for a while, and I'm like, it really annoys me that the only way that I can gain followers in this game is to enslave them. There's no other option. You have to go beat somebody up, drag them back to your base, put them on the wheel of pain to break them, and then they become your servant. I can't pay them gold. I can't feed them. That was the annoying thing. But the world that you're playing in has to have the darkness and the things to fight against. And
And that's what makes the game. It's what allows your characters to be heroes.
How's the stereotype? I don't know where we've gone with the conversation.
It was referencing the people we were talking about, people getting too into the game. It's an aside that we've ventured into.
People complaining about certain stereotypes.
Oh, so we're talking about prissy, cunty, stereotypical players who bring real world politics into a fantasy game. Is that what we're talking about?
Talking about that. We're talking about people who have a problem with the stereotypes that are presented in the game.
Did you see the big banner off to the side there?
Sounds exactly.
Here we go. Look at this one.
Yeah, except for I don't
Look
need
at
to
this.
categorize people.
Yeah, I thought you came to fight.
I'm over it.
Nah, too bad. You got me all riled up.
Here's Richard.
I like your logo, Richard. It's really cool.
Nice one, Richard. Legend.
Richard the Dungeon Crawler. Check out Richard's channel. Richard talks about a lot of basic and expert D&D and board games and stuff like that. So check out Richard's channel. There we go.
I'm already subbed. So,
already subbed.
What do you think about the stereotype of the shy main character that doesn't want to be a main character, but he's being pushed to be a main character, probably by an inexperienced DM?
Oh, the reluctant hero trope, right?
Yeah. It's about
Kinda.
as frustrating
Yes.
for a DM as
And
the
so is Blade by a freaking weeb.
But look, I saw one of the best examples. Who's got that clicking mic? It's driving me insane, by the way. I saw the best example of that. Again, not to sing John's praises, because Lord knows he doesn't need any more smoke going up that ass. He did a great job of that. He played a reluctant character in the Palladium game who then became an enthusiastic character at the end of it all, but he didn't just stonewall. As long as the player's not going to stonewall you, no, I'm not going, no. That's the problem. When I used to run Marvel back in college, we had this one player, friend of mine, and his character would always throw a hissy fit and leave. And then we'd lose the entire session with the group going to wherever he went to try and convince him to come back to the group to go on the mission. And that would just turn into the entire goddamn session. It was exhausting. You know?
Yeah, you run into the same problem with the lone wolf characters. You know,
Yeah.
lone wolf
Yeah.
characters and the reluctant hero only work if people play them and accept that those characters, that's a starting point for their character, and that those characters ultimately have to develop. You know, Wolverine, one of the classic art, lone wolves that people want to glom onto. Yeah, sure, he's a lone wolf, but he's always connecting to people. He's always connecting to the kids. He's always connecting to some X-Men. He's got a crush on Jean Grey. He's what?
It's all right
Doesn't
having
have a crush on Jean
it's all right having that little bit of reluctance, as long as the player is willing to let that
Oh, yeah.
reluctance be overcome
Yes.
and be able to do it in a logical way.
It's none of those characters. And you mentioned that it's always played by a weeb, Midu, I believe it was.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
because they don't understand that
Mostly.
those people glom onto the character as he starts. But if they knew those characters, they would know that those characters generally develop perhaps
Yeah.
a little longer in their development than is good at a gaming table. And that's the other thing. A lot of people want to base their characters on characters from book series or TV series who have a much longer
Or
form.
anime.
Well, that's a TV series, right? We have a lot more time to develop.
Hold on, Eli. Midu, I think it's your microphone that's clicking. The clicking went when you muted.
Yeah.
Any chance you could just unplug and plug back in again or something?
Okay.
What about now?
No, it's still there.
There,
It's
but
still
I think
there.
it's Slang's mic, is it not? I'm trying to
Well, let me
watch
try
the
to
little
mute,
circles
but-
to see who's popping. All right, let's leave him just for a couple of seconds. Let's hear if we get any more popping, and then we'll know whose mic it is for sure.
I thought it was Midu that was doing it, because when he went mute, that's when it stopped.
Yeah, I think he disconnected.
Looks like it is,
Yeah.
sadly.
But no,
That's sad.
yeah, he's not here. He was the one who asked the question. But yeah.
Charlie, don't
We
surf
need to get
Alucard,
more
don't
people on the
dance.
screen here and play Hollywood Squares.
You just want to be center square, you egomaniac.
Hopefully
You want
Midu's
to be
just-
Charles Nelson Riley.
Hopefully Midu's just rebooting or something, just because I like having Midu on.
Yeah, I do too.
He's yes, the clicking has now stopped. Just reboot or something, and then see if that sorts it
So we
out.
don't feel like we're missing out. Here we go. There's some clicking. There we go. You can hear that.
Because I think Midu's got some very, very interesting points, because we say Iman's a youngster, the stereotypical youngster. Neither of them are, clearly, because they, by coming in here and giving to our conversations and talking about it in such a constructive way, they are breaking that stereotype. There is a stereotype of an us versus them at the moment in the hobby.
Mhm.
The old guard versus the youngsters. And in Iman and Midu, we've got a couple of youngsters who are very, very proactive in the way they think. They're willing to talk about all the various things that are going on in their parts of the world in terms of gaming, but are willing to listen and adapt. So they break stereotypes.
I think Iman doesn't give himself enough credit at what an instinctual duck to water he's been in role playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that imposter syndrome thing, isn't it?
Well, maybe, or maybe you're just looking for something to hide behind because you just can't accept that you're actually really good at it.
I don't know.
The imposter syndrome runs strong with him.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
The thing is, I think it runs just through me as a person. Like, I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm probably nicer than I actually think I am, because I actually think I'm a dick. But,
Most people are dicks are actually kind of nice guys, but
Hey, you take that back. You take that back.
You're a sweetie bear, you know it.
Get fucked.
Hey, Bear, could you imagine if I was actually one of those snowflakes, though? I'm not playing in your Palladium game because it doesn't have Islam as a religion.
But it does. It has Zahirism.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like my buddy who has the worst luck. He goes to the local store and then gets cornered by people who don't even know him, who he's never even met, who just like immediately take one look at him and like assume that he does all this bad stuff in his games. Like, who the fuck are you? I don't even know who you are. Why are you following me into my car? He literally had a gaggle of people follow him out of the store and to his car, yammering at him about stuff. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, you're in Texas too, buddy. You're lucky. They're lucky they didn't end up on the pavement, the chalk outline.
So let's talk about some of the gamer stereotypes. Yes, we've already hinted at a few of these. Slan told us that he has had a bath today and put on some clean clothes and deodorant.
All I heard was a bath. I didn't hear nothing about clean clothes and deodorant.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay. But it is.
Thanks, Alcar.
It is.
Well, to go along with your comment earlier.
Look into my eye.
Thank you, John and Beth, for the compliments, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Unfortunately, the stereotypes in the real world often exist for a reason. I've been in hot conventions where there has been that where there has been that and you know where it's coming from, and it is they're one of us, they're a gamer. But how do you put it to them that maybe they need
I've ever seen of that is I went to a convention that had wartime propaganda style posters like soap, the anti girl, and all this all posted up all over the place. And one of the staff was walking around with a T-shirt that says "I don't stink," and then on the back says "So why the fuck do you?" That one was a bad convention because they had one of those outside convention tent spaces that you see at a lot of hotels that have tried to upgrade to convention spaces. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to walk through the well-kept hotel space and then out into the open fresh air and then go into the tent where all the games were gathered. And there was this palpable Scooby-Doo level wall of funk, where you could take out a kitchen knife and cut out a piece of it like cake, and just a massive wall of like gamer funk that you hit.
That was a stink cloud spell. You were
all around the space. They had these little side doors, right? The emergency exits. And so the gamers kept propping them open, but the staff keeps coming and closing them. We're like, no, you don't understand. Those need to stay open. They're like, well, they can't stay open. It's a safety thing. I'm like, no, take a sniff.
It's like being at a Fish concert.
Yeah, a buddy of mine who ran a shop used to keep a can of deodorant under his desk, under the front desk. Because if you walked in through the front door and he walked past his register and he could smell you, he'd like take it out. He'd either use this or go home.
The place where I go to listen to bands, it's a bar. Well, now Michigan has legalized recreational marijuana use. And every now and then somebody will come in that just absolutely reeks. And Donna, the gal that owns this bar, has a big can of Lysol, If somebody walks in that smells bad, she will walk up to them and spray them down with Lysol before she lets them in the bar.
She'd be spraying me then.
Yeah,
there was
the interstate here.
The clicking gone.
There was something to be. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people in our hobby who are not particularly socially well adjusted.
Yeah.
In other news, rain is wet.
Yeah. And I gather probably a lot of people aren't aware or just don't care. But I'm just going to tell almost a heartwarming story now. This guy wasn't a gamer, but he was on the spectrum, and he was obsessed with quizzes, knowledge. And he used to be in one of the quiz teams that came to the pub quiz that I hosted. And he was in a quiz team who called themselves the Grommets after Wallace and Gromit. And me and my wife referred to him as Greasy Gromit because his hair looked greasy. He always looked like he wore the same clothes. He had his lank, greasy hair. Give him his dues. He never smelt bad. He invited me to be on a team on a TV quiz show with him. I was the reserve for the team. There was 5. There was 4 on the team. I was the reserve. I was the 5th one. And me and my wife went down there. We got to stay at the hotel. And he came down to breakfast on the morning of the filming. I remember we'd seen him wear the same shirt, same suit. He always wore a suit, same shirt all the time. The clicking's gone, so me do. That's worked. And he sat down at breakfast, and he got his suitcase with him. And it was like, what do you think I should wear today in the studio? And he had with him 6 identical suits, 6 identical shirts. We thought he just wore the same clothes all the time. No, he had just the same outfits, multiple times over and over and over and over.
I mean, there are a lot of stereotypes we could dive into about gamers, and some of them are probably not really polite to talk about.
No.
Like,
how many of you had first-hand experience with the Satanic Panic?
Only tangentially, but yeah.
We had a speaker that came to it's called the Center for the Arts. They have a big auditorium where they'll have speakers come in and they do plays and musicals and have a museum and the whole thing. Well, there was a speaker that came in to warn all the parents about the evils of metal music and Dungeons and Dragons. So there were a lot of kids there and a lot of their parents, and he did a slideshow. So they dimmed the lights and they're showing the slides, and they showed the slides of what was it? Diary of a Madman album cover back when they had albums and things like that. And they're talking about all the satanic imagery and all that. And as he was putting up the different bands, some of the teens out in the audience would clap and cheer and all that. And this minister, this fine, upstanding man of the cloth or whatever, turned to the crowd and said, "Isn't it amazing how the cowards come out in the dark?" It's like, dude, if you had any credibility to begin with, it is gone now. But it wasn't long after that I started gaming because it had already been out a little while. It was about 83 when I started, and we played over at my buddy Dennis's house. Well, Dennis's neighbor had goats. One of his goats died, so we wanted to lean into the whole thing. We went out there trying to find its skull because we were going to put it right above the door where we gamed, just to screw with people. If you're going to say it, I'm going to be it.
Must be a rural boy thing too, because when my sister's horse died, I made rune stones out of its teeth. Because I'm like, I wanted Viking rune stones.
Well, yeah. He made a medicine bag out of the teeth from the muskie that he caught fishing. And another one of the guys in our group took a baseball batting helmet, cut the brim off it, and took the antlers from one of the deer he had shot and mounted it on the side because he thought Vikings wore horned helmets.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't kill the horse. It died. It faltered and drowned in the mud. It was dead on its own. I didn't kill it.
And instead of
I only did that after the bones got dug up by the dog.
Instead of having gun fights, we made homemade armor, swords, crossbows, and all that. And we went out in the woods and beat the hell out of each other with those.
No,
we were LARPing before LARPing was a thing. It was full contact because most of our crossbows had about a 75-pound pull on them, and even with padded bolts, that hurt.
Yeah, wearing sticks, wielding sticks and wearing armor made out of apple crates was our thing. That you take the wire from the apple crates and bend it around you and wear it as slatted armor.
Okay, I took a T-shirt and wrapped it sticky side out with duct tape. Put row after row after row of pennies on it. Put another layer of duct tape over top of it. Cut the sides and put leather strapping in it. So I had a brigandine of a form, I would guess.
Yeah.
And,
I only ran into the Satanic Panic, like I said, through the kind of on the edge. We had a neighbor lady who tried to warn my mother about what I was into, and my mother just looked at her and, in the most polite sense, told her to get fucked. But because my mom was like, he's coming home from the library with arms full of books, he's studying history, he's doing math, he's got friends, you know. He's not out partying and doing drugs. Of course, I'm 10, so like that's really going to happen. But it's the 70s, early 80s. She's like, he's doing fine. He's using his brain. He's writing. I see him constantly writing these stories, and she just saw all the good about it. And the only trouble I ever got into it over it was spending too much time doing it and not enough time with school.
He's learned 12 synonyms for prostitute from the Dungeon Master's Guide.
I learned
Trumpet.
6 or 7 from my mother.
Trollop.
But no, that the Satanic Panic.
And then I had the overly religious girlfriend that made me get rid of all my stuff too, because I was dumb and thought it was going to be forever and blah blah blah. And I've been rebuilding my collection since '95 because of that.
The Satanic Panic really wasn't a thing over here. Not that I ever noticed. The only
Not in Canada.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I had one friend stop gaming because he spent more time. He became very, very religious. But I think that was more to do with just the fact that he was spending time at church youth groups rather than just with us lot. I don't know. I mean, we really sort of lost contact with him.
We had Dallas Egbert supposedly disappear in the steam tunnels of Michigan State University about an hour and a half away. Even though he didn't really disappear, he just
took off.
He showed up in Texas. Yeah, he was homosexual. He had a couple of things going on with depression and all that, and he just needed to get away from everybody. So he booked it out of state, and he did end up committing suicide later. But that was the thing. He was down in the steam tunnels because him and his friends were playing D&D down there, and somebody must have killed him and buried the body. I remember that being in the news all over.
I think, didn't it turn out or something that he hadn't actually played D&D for at least a couple of years, and that was just something that he'd done.
Well, a lot of that was also predicated on that one.
He was going through a withdrawal. That explains it all.
There was that one guy, that one investigator who was just an absolute showman who was just milking it for all it was worth too.
Yeah,
well, he wrote that book, right?
I wrote the book, and he basically coached and cherry picked witnesses in that 60 Minutes documentary that you ever saw. That what I feel bad for that 60 Minutes piece is the reporter himself is trying to be balanced, but his editors are torpedoing him. Because if you watch the way that special was edited, you can see he's trying to talk and present it like, well, some of these people might actually have mental, emotional issues that then D&D just becomes the excuse. And then next thing is like, but demons.
Well, that's what the whole the Rona Jaffe's Mazes and Monsters was based on.
Well, that's the guy. Rona Jaffe is the piece of shit.
She had a hard on for being anti D&D. There were a couple things she did that.
Rona Jaffe is not the investigator that I was talking
about.
No,
Rona Jaffe's book is the one that fueled it for a lot of people, and that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's because the thing is, like, if my buddy and I would have gotten a car accident back in the 80s, they probably would have tried to blame it on D&D, because I guarantee you our car was full of D&D crap because we were always gaming. We were heavily into games all the time.
They tried to do a satanic spell and instead crashed into a bridge abutment.
I never saw it during the Satanic Panic, though, was being over to Buddy's house gaming, and the doorbell goes bing boom, and of course, who's there? Some folks with Bibles in hand, there to try and warn us about the evils of Dungeons and Dragons. So we're in we're in one of the split levels where you have the door, and you got the stairs that go down to the basement and the stairs that go up to the rest of the house. And so he's standing at the upstairs by where the kitchen is, and dude was kind of a hardcore crazy rocker guy, doesn't miss a beat. He hears them start talking, rips his shirt off and starts faking a demonic spasm and rolls himself down the stairs at them.
There was another murder trial that they ended up making a movie of too, where they tried blaming it on the guy playing Dungeons and Dragons and losing his mind and all that. I've got the VHS triple cassette set of it because they never put it out on DVD. It's man,
it's not the Tom Hanks one though.
No, oh, I've got that too. But this one has Jane from Firefly. He plays one of the cops in it, and one of the young kids is one of the guys that ended up being Band of Brothers later. But it was a real murder trial, and in the book there was like we found the kids played D&D, but it had nothing whatsoever to do with anything. But then they made this whole TV miniseries about the reason he killed his parents was to get the money from them so he could buy more gaming stuff.
Yeah,
it's not cheap, you know.
It's so funny because
cars were so much easier.
In so many of these instances, if it wasn't, D&D ends up being the excuse or the vehicle, that gets laid on. But in actual cases where people are, let's say you're dealing with, a schizophrenic who plays D&D, right? If it wasn't D&D, it would be his toast at breakfast or the dog next door or clouds. Something would be the trigger. It's just D&D.
It would be Ozzy Osbourne Suicide Solution song because he had to go to court for that.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say, because certainly in the 70s and 80s, D&D the hobby attracted quite a lot of outsiders.
Yeah.
That might be something to do with the stigma. Because we were different.
America was going through a huge sort of mini revival in
period where
the name of that mini series was Cruel Doubt, which it's an interesting watch. There was one time for one of our gaming nights,
but
we
a lot of subcultures go
we watched
through a
that
movement.
back to back with Mazes and Monsters.
Yeah, there was one of the things that facilitated it though. At the time, there was sort of it was just part of the overall religiosity of that was kind of coming up in the country at the time, and the level of paranoia that because we're going through cultural change, and so the conservative folks who were seeing their kids get into weird stuff, and when I say conservative, I mean not functional conservatives.
Well, and part of it was there were a bunch of bored congressmen, not to be.
Oh yeah, they started
there were a bunch of bored congressmen's wives who had nothing better to do, so they wanted to start the whole labeling thing for music, putting warning labels on anything that might be considered a problem. People have been talking about that in the chat here when John Denver and Dee Snider and was it Zappa? Might have been Frank Zappa, I think, went before Congress and said why they were against having labeling. And of course, John Denver walked in, and he was actually on his way to meet with NASA because they were putting some of his music on a probe that was getting sent out to space or something. So they thought he was going to be the one that was going to be the shining star for the prosecution. And he's like, absolutely not will I ever support labeling music.
Yeah, one of the things that also pushed all of that at the time too is a ton of money started getting shoveled at Congress to set up programs and to take action. And anytime you start shoveling money at Congress for a problem, they're going to blow that problem up. So
about the genetic panic, you won't believe it, but over here in Jordan, when I was a little kid, suddenly, like out of nowhere, there was this huge thing about the Pokemon show anime, and like scholars, quote unquote scholars, were coming out telling that, oh, this Pokemon stuff is satanic, and look at their names.
It just gets out of control. Monsters.
Drawing like that are not there, and you know what's funny? They actually got it banned from TV in Jordan.
So you had like a slightly later satanic panic towards a different game.
Yeah.
But for similar reasons. It was something that the kids were into.
And they got it banned.
Kind of coming back to topic though, like what are some other gamer stereotypes?
Yeah.
Because we talked about the unkempt, unclean gamer.
But they're all pencil neck geeks, right there.
Actually, stereotypes are very bad, and you shouldn't use them because traditionally there are things that you do not understand, and you should read more because clearly you live in some sort of patriarchal bullshit society, sir.
I forgot my glasses. I left them in the
And
other
there we
room.
have a good impression of the Twitter gamer stereotype.
Yeah.
Yes.
The idiot.
Who said they're gamers? They're
egoist
complainers.
know-it-all.
Yeah.
See, most of the gamers that I played with in high school, we were all involved in a lot of things. I mean, we had a couple of football players, we had 2 cheerleaders, we had a tennis guy, we had a couple of wrestlers, some people that ran track, some baseball players. I mean, we had a very broad range of academic accomplishment.
That's when you said a couple of wrestlers. All my brain did was go, "Yeah, rolled the 20. Yeah, critical
hit, brother."
No. Nothing at all like
That's
like
bullshit.
Randy
You
Savage.
didn't leave the dice on the table. I saw you pick it up. You rolled a 4. That's just, let's have that.
I want to see this. I want to see a supercut of wrestlers playing D&D.
Well,
I think
maybe
the
I'll use one of those
closest we're
voice
gonna get to
AI
Vin Diesel.
things.
Yeah, there you go. One funny one that we always joke around in our group is the Shendara, the Elven Princess, which is the girl gamer who always shows up at the table back in the day and like, I'm an Elven Princess. It was like 50% of the girls I ever gamed with, that was like their take. It's like, so it became known as Shendara, the Elven Princess in our circles. I don't know if it's a universal term, but that's what we called it because it's like, oh look, it's Shendara, the Elven Princess. Because she'd be over at the table, and usually they also kind of take on a queen bee personality at whatever gaming table they're at, where like I'm the girl and I know I'm the only girl at the table. Buzz around me, my little greasy boy drones, because
I can say that never happened in our games because
none of the games I was ever in either. But you'd see them in the shop.
Well, we didn't know any girls. We didn't talk to girls. That was why.
I knew
We
girls.
had
They
the
just
problem
didn't
with
want to game.
in the vampire LARP. There were the girls who slept their way through the LARP. They were just a treat to have around. Like,
Oh, I'm not going to go into it, but a buddy
pitting
of mine-
nerd boys against each other in these lover wars where she was just sitting back like the goddess. It was insane.
a buddy of mine had a serious issue with his girlfriend and her involvement in the LARP. Like, they were living together, serious relationship, serious couple, and like she would come home all hours of the morning after been out LARPing. Like, she's got marks on her. He's like, "What's going on, yo?" And she's like, "It's just a game." He's like, games don't leave bruises on your arms. That went really bad, but it could, but yeah, the Shendara, the Elven Princess, and the Queen Bee. But there's also like the Monty Hall DM. That's the other one.
Mm-hmm.
and it's not always with magic items too. There's some of those guys I've seen. I remember there's an X-Files group in our local store. It involved certain interesting fellows with nicknames like Mr. Twitchy, and but I would sit there and like blink excessively. It was like a broken android, but because he was also very stiff. But the GM in that group would give XP for anything. Oh, you started your car. That was great. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You solved a basic problem that any FBI agent that you're playing should be able to know. Look, you successfully fingerprinted somebody. Ooh, XP.
For me, the worst was and we had one here who was really bad in our social circle, is the GM who would try and sleep with any woman that came into the game.
Oh, geez.
And he would try and use the game to seduce them. And the sad
Pick up
part
DM.
is they'd get enough success out of it that they would continue to do it.
Gives a whole new meaning to pickup games.
Yeah, one of my friends, whose name I won't mention just in case him or any of my other old gaming people ever listen, he thought every girl that gamed with us was absolutely in love with him. And they weren't. They absolutely were not. But
She loves me.
But
Let's
yeah,
also-
he would give their character. He was the DM, and he would give their characters all sorts of perks to the point that I think I mentioned this before. He ticked off a boyfriend, girlfriend couple that was there gaming with us, and yeah, I mean it's I guess young guys all have their delusions. I mean, hey, Susanna Hoffs, right? Maybe
You had to go there. You had to go there.
I invoke the name of the goddess.
See, and this is just a sidetrack on that. I found the sisters way cooler and way more interesting to my speed, right? The drummer and the guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, yeah, Susanna Hoffs is cute and all, but those two looked like they were way more fun to hang out with, Like, that's going to be a party.
No,
So
if it was a group just to have fun
every
playing
guy
out with,
wants
it'd have to be Vixen.
Yeah.
Heart,
Really? Vixen?
Heart when they were younger.
I'll shut up.
Are you fat shaming?
There is a new stereotype in the hobby, which I think Seven Beetle of Doom here has alluded to.
Yeah.
And we've
let's stop
mentioned the
this
LARPing
circle.
side of it. And these are the people who are they really in the hobby for the gaming? Or are they wannabe improv actor type?
Yes.
Does it matter?
Does it matter?
I don't
Does it matter?
understand this thing where so many
does.
people get down on improv for gaming. Like, it's a useful skill and it can really help you become a better gamer.
I also
I
don't
think
understand the critical role hate. Honestly, I mean, I'm not a fan of theirs, but I just don't get the hate.
Is the acting there to enhance the game, or is the game kind of getting in the way of their acting because they just really, really want to be a star of stage and screen?
They were a game group beforehand, but certainly it's all been adapted for the presentation. And there is certainly a little bit of a knock-on effect where some people are coming into the hobby expecting DMs to be quite Matt Mercer-ish, but the vast majority of us aren't remotely, not even nearly.
Yeah, but people have come into games expecting DMs to be like the other DM they played with or DMs they heard about since the dawn of time.
I got accused of being a Matt Mercer wannabe by the usual suspects a month or two ago. It was hilarious.
Oh, because he's like because you're the world builder, storyteller,
character voice, this, that, and the other thing that I do as a GM. So I was accused in one of their comment sections of, Matt Mercer wannabe. Okay, well, fuck you. Have fun.
Okay, so there's a stereotype. My group ran into their first halfling ever that was coming out of the inn that they were on their way to, and I played him straight up Freddie Mercury.
What, Syrian? I don't get it. What do you mean straight up Freddie Mercury?
One stereotype.
He had a wand of illusion, so he was trying to make some coins singing. He wasn't a bard or anything, but he was in this bar trying to make some money singing. So he's talking all about how he used his wand to make a big mirrored ball that was reflecting lights all over the tavern, so to enhance his singing.
The question is, when you were role playing him, were you up on top of the table in a leotard, belting out "We are the champions"?
We don't have a table big enough for me to get on top of.
but I like this idea as a character concept. This halfling who's not a bard, but has decided he's going to make money like a bard. I think that's a great character idea.
Well, demi-humans are really rare, so I mean, it was a treat to some of the people to even see a halfling, so he decided to take advantage of it. So basically he did a really poor karaoke show.
My halfling in this game now has an open invitation to perform at an inn.
My players once got me I ran the adventure at the back of the Paranoia 2nd edition hardback book. And it's got a group in there who are supposed to be descended from disco and sort of music obsessives in general of the late 70s, early 80s. Only I brought them slightly more, not quite up to date, but I had them bowing down to the mighty Cobain and things like that.
No.
It was just it was just an excuse for me to get up in the session and make loads of song lyric quotations when I was role playing as them, and I was shouting and screaming various song lyrics from rock and pop songs throughout the entire session and annoying my players. But that's what you're meant to do when you're playing Paranoia. Allegedly. That's what I do. Anyway.
So
anyways.
Do have another gamer stereotype I thought about.
Yeah, well, Mark just posted one in the chat.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
The rules lawyer.
Oh yes.
Yeah. The
What
rules
about the
lawyer.
Well, actually, I think you'll find his name is Mark's Genre Mixer.
You're right.
Well, also,
That's
actually, I don't think the rules lawyer is even a stereotype. That's an actual thing.
It's not a stereotype. It's an archetype.
I mean, and it can be for good and bad. I mean, my buddy Derek styles himself as the rules lawyer for good. In fact, that's his con badge most years when he goes to conventions, because he'll even rules lawyer on the side of like other players and DMs and stuff like that, because he's more of a rules cyclopedia than a lawyer, I guess. But no, the one I was thinking about is is basically those what's the right term? Basically the DMs who like kind of become sort of their own little mini cult leader at their table, where they're like, all just like it's almost a gaming group stereotype, where you just have those groups where the DM is like, oh, great leader, and all the players are like, oh, he's the best, and he's like, I am the best.
Normal? You mean a normal DM? Okay.
No. I'm talking like a weird, unhealthy way to where like he's just like, that they have special Kool-Aid. I've run into them in groups, and they're like, and it goes beyond the normal. Like, I have a really cool DM. He's a nice guy, and he does really good adventures. It's just more like this deification of a DM.
That's true. Yeah, you do get some of that, but I suppose that comes from the players, really, doesn't it?
Well, there's DMs who lean into it, though, and that's the thing what I'm talking about. There's those DMs who really just go in and they're like absolutely like eating their own shit, because they're just like
You eat shit.
So, what about the DM guy who inserts himself into everything? Like me. This character is basically me, and this character is basically me, but a little bit different. This is elf me.
I've never encountered
this is
that.
the king.
We had the
He's
DM
king, but
PC.
it's on me.
Like, no joke, even back in the 80s, I never had a DM who did that, who just put themselves in the game. Like, I've never seen that before.
I've seen
not themselves, they're characters. I've seen
GMPs. I've never seen GMP. I've heard about them. I've heard people talk about them, but I've never seen it happen.
Yeah,
Well,
one of my best friends from high school, that was his big shtick, and especially in our Star Wars game, it annoyed the shit out of me, because he'd run this character who was already over. He was a power gamer anyways, and so his characters didn't need any help. We'd be playing a Marvel campaign. I'm like, I'm going to play kind of a low level, mutant character, just getting their powers. He's like, and I'm Thor, but he wouldn't start in our Star Wars campaign for the longest time. He'd run this Mandalorian. He almost always played a freaking Mandalorian back before based on the old school Mandalorian popularity. And then when he was running a campaign, who would show up but his Mandalorian, who would be doing a whole bunch of really cool stuff in the campaign and still racking up XP. So the next time he came back to the table as a player, he's like, I've got all this new character stuff from all that adventuring I did. Yeah, that you were running and channeling stuff towards your character.
Yeah, he was basically my best friend. We lived together for a few years.
This guy.
He was our DM quite a bit, and he had an NPC that he ran that was also his player character when he wasn't DMing. And he took the Archer Ranger NPC class from Best of Dragon Magazine, Volume 3.
Yeah.
It was basically unstoppable. I mean, if you combine that with the Unearthed Arcana double weapon specializations, this guy was dealing hundreds of hit points of damage per melee round. And at one point, we were facing. Now, okay, I'll admit he was my best friend, and I was a smart player, so my character usually lived through pretty much everything. But we were facing some really hellacious enemy onslaught. I don't remember what it was. And another one of my buddies, who was actually the DM's nephew, says, well, my character is going to grab on the ranger's leg and just hold on. And the DM's like, well, what are you doing that for? He says, well, because you never take any damage. If I'm with you, I'm going to live through this.
Yeah.
Oh, so like how you guys treat Angus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your own fault for rolling maximum hit points for the first 3 levels.
Yeah, I've rarely seen a DM run one of his characters in a game and not have it end up being bad. You know, I've come back and used old characters as NPCs, sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's just if you have a character and you're playing in the same world long enough and, you know, you've got retired characters, well, and they're out there being a lord somewhere, well, why not use them, right?
And they tend to.
That's what Gary and them did, right? You know?
They can flit in and flit out, and if the party is particularly weak one day, you might have them meet this NPC. It might just help them a little bit, but then would leave as
But
and
yeah,
when
the DMPC is particularly brutal and toxic when it shows up. Because
when I first started gaming with them, that was the first real group that I joined. I had played one-on-one with another one of my friends, but my buddy had 2 characters. He had a barbarian named Conan, of course, and that was before Unearthed Arcana came out. But one of the Dragon magazines talked about a barbarian being a combination of a fighter and a ranger and a thief. So he took those 3 lines and ran with it. So at first level, he rolled 2d8, a d10, and a d6, added them all up with a con bonus for each one of those 4 hit dice. And that was how many hit points he had at first level. Every level he went up, he rolled a 10, an 8, and a 6, and added that to it. So at like 12th level, he was 300 some odd hit point, ridiculous thing. And he had Conan's wife, Bethel the Witch, from the Wizards and Warriors TV series. And Bethel had the full set of all 32 Teeth of Delvernar artifacts. And so, yeah.
I mean,
you mentioned Monty Hall.
You're making my brain hurt.
I mean, we definitely
Brain hurts.
back in the day. I remember getting
Okay, roll for sanity.
Seriously, I gotta do a sanity check after hearing that, man. Jesus.
So
Christ.
he was always bragging about how invulnerable his characters were. Well, when I ran something homemade, his barbarian wanted to have a Githyanki silver sword, so he got one, of course, because he was DMing himself. So in my game, in my adventure that I ran, they came back for that sword. And they stole it from him, and he was chasing them. And the Githyanki ran between these 2 rocks and did a head first dive through them and disappeared. And, it must be some kind of gate. So his barbarian went and just ran through those 2 rocks. It was 3 gates. The bottom 2 feet went to the negative material plane. The middle 3 feet went to wherever it was the Githyanki was from, concordant opposition or something like that. And the top 3 feet went to the elemental plane of fire. So he got cut into 3 pieces. 2 of them sent to places where he's irrevocably turned into nothing. So, roll a new character.
Yeah.
So speaking of stereotypes from earlier, never lend to Githyanki money. They will not pay you back.
I thought that was the Githziri.
Listen, that's their word for them. I don't use that word, sir.
Oh, okay.
But power gamers, of course, I mentioned that's a stereotype, but it's also a thing. It's an archetype too.
Absolutely,
because they're a thing. Yeah. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I've known some power gamers who are not bad players.
3rd edition did that though. Like 3rd edition was one of those games where I played with some 3D players a few years ago, and it was a coworker and his friends wanted to play D&D, and they loved 3rd edition. And would you run a game? I said, sure, I can run 3E. Holy shit! Every combat, everything was just angling for the +1s in whatever way they could get them, because that's what the game wanted you to do. You know? So.
And prior to 3rd edition, you mostly saw it with very gameable systems like Champions.
Oh yeah.
And my buddy is awesome to game with when he's not on the power gamer trip, and that's the thing. It's like, dude,
same thing with my buddy. Yeah,
we like you. You don't have to show off for us through your character. Just be part of the team.
That was the ridiculous thing. I mean,
not even worse.
I mean, the guy's now a published author. I mean, my old DMPC running friend. It's like, dude, you've got stories to tell, and you can make characters that are good. stop feeling like you have to power. I think that's half the reason why I came down and played in a Star Wars game with that set of blue sweatpants on my head. Being I'm definitely not going to take this seriously. Here's my Twi'lek swoop racer character.
So another stereotype, actually, we just joked about it, but it's the whole going insane and dying in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
It's not a stereotype.
it is.
That's a trope. That's a truism.
That's a fact. That's a spoiler.
How's your insanity doing over there, Iman?
His
I don't know.
insanity is doing great. His sanity, that's another story.
It's a bad reputation the game built up over time from basically the earlier editions, and also the fact that a lot of people only have any experience playing it as one-shots and at conventions.
Point of parliamentary procedure. It's not a reputation that it built up. It's something that was baked into the game. When you got the original set back in the 80s with the box set, there was an introductory adventure, 6, 7, 8 parts, something like that. The last part of the fucking adventure, Cthulhu manifests. Immediately lose 100 plus D100 insanity. Come on.
Yes, because, as I said, earlier editions of the game is where it came from, but it was never intended to, if you listen to Sandy Peterson talk about the game, the man who created the game or co-created the game, it was never intended to be that brutal. That's why there are healing rules in there. That's why there are sanity recovery rules. The problem is early on, the writers of adventures didn't know how to write adventures because they were still trying to write D&D style adventures with Call of Cthulhu as the rules.
Yeah,
I will say,
they were also receiving a lot of editorial notes from Chaosium saying, you have to make it like the books. You have to make it like the books. The whole reason the default setting is the 20s is because they told them it has to be like the books. Sandy Peterson wanted to write it as a modern game, modern for 1970, whatever, 1980. But, he wanted to write it as a modern game. But they're like, no, you have to write it this way. So a lot of those early adventures suffer from a heavy editorial process.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier on in the stream, I mean, obviously, we're joking about the state of Iman's character at the moment. Iman, I think we're 9 sessions into Horror on the Orient Express, and Iman had a character that started with 35 sanity, which is not a lot. Yeah. And in every single session, whenever they've encountered a body or some nasty situation, the one character that has gone forward and examined the body or prodded or examined the situation has been Iman's character. Every opportunity to make a sanity check, his character's been having to make it. And starting with 35 sanity, after 9 sessions, he now has 10.
Yeah, I mean, in my game, my campaign that I was running for a while, the one that had to retire their character to go get help was my wife's character, because she was the occultist in the party and therefore sort of the one who's keyed into all the supernatural paranormal stuff.
Yes.
So she's the one who's most likely to go inspect it. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is a reporter who, while he writes a news rag about the paranormal, and then there was an aspiring author, and one guy was a mechanic. So of those 4, who's the one who's most likely to go up and poke the thing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's the person who suffered the most. But it is. I will say this, it's a reputation that kept me from playing the game for decades. Because every time I would talk to somebody about it, they're like, oh yeah, it's so cool. All you do is die and go insane. I'm like, fuck, sounds amazing to me. And then, finally I heard, more balanced take on it when I happened to start watching Seth Skorkowski's videos. And he actually he's the first person I had ever heard talk about this game as an actual role-playing game that we're putting time into. Yeah. So, but yeah, it does have that reputation, and it's a reputation that it's earned, and and you're not wrong there, Barry. The early adventures have that, but that's because they were written by people who had no fucking idea what they were doing.
I will say, I mean, certainly with Call of Cthulhu, the long campaigns are written very differently to the one-shots. The long campaigns are generally a lot more gentle than the one-shots.
Well, and the one shots are written to give the most impact, the most punch, and you can tell you can tell the one shots. I can't remember which adventure it is, but there's one that I mention it whenever we talk about this. Basically, you drop the razor and cut yourself. Sanity check. Like any man in the 20s who's shaving with a straight razor hasn't done that once or twice in his life. You know, they grew up with a pocket knife glued to their hand. You know.
The last time I played Cthulhu was my buddy's Atomic Cthulhu, which was set in the 50s, and it was set in Vegas and all this kind of shit. And the only thing, we only played 3 sessions, and the only Cthulhuid thing we ran into is when we were in the desert. We saw something in the distance flying in the sky, and despite my efforts going, no, I didn't see that. I didn't look. What are you talking about? I didn't look. We had to make sanity checks, and I lost sanity because I saw something weird in the sky. I'm like,
the same scenario I'm mentioning, like if you come into a room, into the bathroom, and your character catches a reflection, it's like there's a percentage chance you'll catch a reflection in the mirror. Sanity check. But then the game, going back to how the adventures are so poorly written earlier on, and I'm not trying to slam on Chaosium, it's just there's a lot of editorial oversight that clearly did them bad, or lack thereof that did them bad. Because at the end of the adventure, when the Elder God actually shows up, it doesn't call for a sanity check. After having you check for sanity for dropping a razor, having you check for sanity for catching a reflection in the mirror, you know, having you check sanity for a spider crawling out of the cupboard. Yeah. Not to mention, one-shot scenarios don't have sanity recovery built into them, which is part of the game. When you win the game, but when you beat the scenario, you're supposed to get sanity back based on your success.
Yes. I really wish my character had more sanity back.
Help you and things.
What was that?
I said, I think you could go find a therapist to help you regain some too.
Oh yeah, that's why my wife's character she decided to make a second character, because she's like, my character's getting low on sanity, and she's got the money to go get high level therapy. She's going to go spend some of her money and go take some time at a spa.
I knew I had it somewhere. This is my very first Call of Cthulhu character sheet, and don't get your character sheet too close to the cheese dip, or you'll get discoloration across the top.
Sanity check.
Sanity check. And now in this one, we all started with 100 sanity, and he's down to 61. So he's lost 39 points along the way.
Not to mention,
I will say now there was a good opportunity to get some sanity back at the end of last night's session. Had you been successful in any way in that scenario? But were you successful?
No. But I will say, that wasn't my fault. The other two were just so hesitant, and one of them was nowhere to be seen.
Don't worry, man. Just know that I'll get revenge for you in the Palladium game. John will pay.
Mido, you were going to say something about sanity?
I was saying that you're... I mean, I was saying like something as a joke, that you have to roll check for sanity if you breathe too hard.
Yeah. I mean, there are scenarios that have some really ridiculous sanity stuff.
Go. Roll for sanity.
But there are also things you can do when building your character to mitigate sanity. Like, we're playing in the 20s, and a good chunk of the players in my group made their characters have a wartime background. And if you're using the previous experience rules, which we were, being a veteran, you lose. Basically, you don't take sanity checks from gore and violence anymore, because you've kind of become inured to it because you were in the trenches and stuff like that.
Even if that gore is a piece of skin flayed off the body and then pinned to the body with a fresh note
No, it's very specific on the type of gore and stuff that you're not affected by. Not affected by basically mundane violence. It says
in Horror on the Orient Express, most of the sanity checks have been either mostly lose none or 1 if you pass, and a D4 or a D6 if you fail. They're not massive losses.
Yeah.
It's just that Iman's managed to fail the vast majority of them. And all these D4s and D6s
starting with 35 doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Also, that's a very long campaign, and they don't want you to necessarily use up all your sanity in the first 2 scenarios.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what kind of veteran you are. I mean, if you're a Vietnam vet that collected ears and fingers anyways, there's a lot less things that are really going to affect you.
Well, I mean, they're not. The rules aren't going to go into that much specificity. It's saying veteran. It's
Well, I mean, I argued with my keeper on that one because I'm like,
his
dude,
doctor also has
my guy's been living in Southeast Asia since Korea World War II type thing ended. He's been running around like, fucking the Philippines and Indonesia as a mercenary, killing people in the jungles. A fucking weird thing in the sky is going to make him lose sanity.
They're still headhunters.
When you said it was at a distance too, it's like, was it even close enough for you to even see with any definition? Because the first thing you're going to think is, oh look, there's a helicopter.
Yeah, it looked like a bird.
There's something weird in the sky.
Yeah, no, lose sanity.
Probably a bird. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I think also because it's a role playing game, so the DM ultimately gets to make those decisions. A person's background is going to any of the sanity checks that are written in a scenario. You can look at those and say, well, you know what, your character clearly would have seen plenty of this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you come into the barn and you see the horse strewn about. Well, Bob there is a butcher. He didn't care. But yeah.
But then you go for a Black Friday sales event. Check for sanity.
D&D itself is.
I worked retail management for 20 years.
That's why you
ask me about Black Friday.
Now we know why you drink, Daniel.
Exactly.
Working fast food when the bus full of football players comes in after the game. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I worked Toys R Us during Christmas.
Be a bouncer.
I ran
be a bouncer. That's all I gotta say.
I was a mall cop.
Oh, Daniel, we had a theory, by the way, last night after playing Call of Cthulhu. We were sort of shooting the shit as we do. We were saying that even though like you drink, that you're aiming with a gun is like the last thing that you lose, the last faculty that you lose from drinking.
Yeah, I mean,
like you might not be able to get up, you might not be able to talk, but you could still shoot a gun.
I'll believe, yeah.
Now, see, I've done a lot of things intoxicated, but I have never taken a firearm out when I was drunk. I mean, you have to be a special kind of stupid for something like that.
Daniel, would you care to chime in on that one?
I would. I'll stay out of that one.
I learned how to shoot before I learned how to ride a bike, and there's just some things that are ingrained in you.
Well, when you do that in front of 150 people, and the other guy says he drew a gun on me, and the bartender says, "No, that's Dan. You need to go." You have a special place in that bar.
There's a comedian I was listening to. He's talking about about gun control, the gun control argument in America. He's like, yeah, but all you he was doing a show in like Kentucky too. He's like, I guarantee you, every one of you who's in the audience knows at least one guy who shouldn't own a gun. You're at the range, it's like, John's here. Oh fuck, we're all gonna die.
Well, my friend, the crazy DM, accidentally shot a hole through his kitchen with a 30-06 that he thought was unloaded. And
a friend of mine, when we were kids, shot Nelson Mandela in the forehead when they were playing with a pistol in the living room. It went off and shot Mandela while he was giving a speech on TV. I've never seen
oh my god!
I've never seen a room clear. We may as well have been cockroaches when the light got turned on. We just that room. We were all out of that house, and then my buddy and I, we felt bad because we left my friend home. We're like, we come home and he's like, so mad. He's like, you fuckers, you left me here with the TV smoking in the living room, and my mom is gonna come home and she's gonna.
Well, and John might appreciate this. My most elegant back break fall ever was when the same guy, we were out pheasant hunting, and one took off to my right. My friend was over on my left, and he swung his shotgun around right past me to shoot at this thing, and I just did a really graceful.
You buttoned a bullet.
Judo comes in beautifully.
Yeah. At the Matrix moment.
I had something in my hands. I couldn't do the hand slap, but I did a back break fall number 1, and it was a
generate into gun talk. No, but
Yeah.
I think honestly, one of the biggest stereotypes, honestly, is just D&D itself.
Oh, you're
if you ask people about what do you do for hobbies? I play role playing games. You mean like D&D? Yes.
Well, I tell
Or-
everybody at work.
Or the other way around is I play role playing game. What's that? Oh, D&D's probably the one you know of. Oh, okay.
Yep. No, that's I liked what Elfmate said. That is true. I even tell people, they're like, "Well, you come in on Saturdays anymore?" So I go in on Sundays because on Saturdays I play with you guys. So
how many of us used to come up with code names for gaming because we didn't want to talk about it openly.
I'm a D&D geek, and so I don't work Saturdays now. Now I adjusted my schedule. I work Sundays.
I want to ask Midu here. I mean, in Jordan, are there any other RPGs that are at all played, or is it just D&D?
In Jordan, I don't think anyone even plays D&D. I'm sure, like, they're like, how to explain the culture, their brains aren't programmed to be interested in these type of things. Like,
so when you play, I mean, are you playing? You're not playing face to face. Are you playing online then with people?
oh yeah. I don't think it ever happened in Jordan that there was a face-to-face RPG game session. Like, it's not popular at all.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I mean there are some cultures where just that kind of use of imagination isn't.
Yeah,
really...
exactly. Like, they can't even fathom the idea of role play.
It's not a foreign concept here, though, because I mean I grew up with 90% of the adults in my life. Why the hell do you want to do that? That's a bunch of wasted time.
Yeah.
You should be spending your time doing something else, like what? Playing football.
Yeah.
Now, I knew I had this in my scrapbook. My aunt and uncle, who lived out in New Mexico, when they found out I was gaming, clipped this out of their New Mexico paper and sent it to me. Fantasy game banned.
I have a buddy of mine. He's now in my Monday game. Sergeant Mushroom. My buddy Jim from high school. All throughout high school, he would play any RPG except D&D. I mean, even if it was just as satanic, like Rifts or satanic, it had just as much magical content or supernatural content. But he had been so basically put in the mindset that D&D was bad, that even though he was a gamer, he just could not get himself to play it. And his parents were still kind of weirdly and nowadays he plays D&D and he's like, man, I remember talking to him. He's like, I kind of missed out because of that back in the day. But
when my girlfriend made me get rid of all my stuff back in '93, I started playing Star Wars D6, or the D6 Star Wars the West End Games version, because that was okay with her church, just Dungeons and Dragons wasn't.
Yeah, because space wizards and magic.
As long as your sword is a laser and not made out of enchanted steel, you're okay.
And as long as your space wizard believes in some sort of undefinable faith, and that's the source of power instead of arcane lore.
Okay, making practical use of a stereotype in our game, in our group, when we went through Temple of Elemental Evil, we had a priest of St. Cuthbert that played him just like a Jehovah's Witness missionary. We'd go into a tavern or something, and Chris, I don't remember what his character's name was, but Chris would find somebody sitting by themselves, and he'd plop down at the table, buy him a drink, and he'd start out, have I told you, or have you heard what St. Cuthbert can do for you? Well, let me tell you, by the time you finish that drink, I know you'll want to convert to our church. And away you go.
It reminds me a little of a certain character in one of our OSE games.
Yeah.
Imagine who that would be. Just saying.
I mean, yeah, I will say the reason I am playing Albertus like that in the game is it's a bit of a pushback against the whole idea of paladins don't have to be holy men sort of thing that's in modern D&D. I'm playing him as traditional a paladin as possible. just to make a point.
Oh no,
Just to make a point.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
He's lawful asshole.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, your druid is neutral asshole, so there you go.
Yeah, there's a connection here, isn't there? My druid's a hippie. My druid is a complete hippie. I'm just leaning into the stereotypes and having fun with them. That's all.
I got to bounce. They're right
All right.
tonight.
Cheers, Daniel.
Later, Dan.
See you later, Dan.
Goodbye.
I used to play a lot of paladins when back in the day when we were basically fudge rules or, to be able to play them. And I realized I had to stop playing them because I just realized I was playing myself because I was to this day, I still am kind of a goody two shoes. I had my stepfather once tell me that he didn't understand my sister because I wasn't a real kid. And that if I would have gotten into more trouble, I would understand her. That's how much of a goody two shoes I was. So I stopped playing paladins because I realized I'm not role playing. I'm just playing myself.
Well, Geppetto, I blame you for that. You're the one that made me.
Well, it's not a therapy session, but you want to talk about a mind fuck. Be a teenager and have your stepdad tell you could have gotten a lot more trouble and you would have been fine. I'm like, what?
We expected you to get drunk and have a fight when you were 15.
Yeah, I was like, I saw, but yeah, it was kind of, that's how much of a goody two shoes I was, when I was to this day, like, I still have a hard time even, like, pushing against, like, the minor laws and stuff like that. Like,
when I read through the player's handbook, the paladin just seemed fascinating to me. So that's what I tried for with my very first character. And he didn't have the skills or the stats to do it. So he was a lawful good fighter. And his thing was he played lawful good to the point where he would correct paladins that weren't being lawful enough or good enough.
I think that's one of the reasons I gravitated towards the Cavalier when it came out, because I could play a paladin without having to actually be so perfect. I could play snooty nobleman and be role playing and still be like a knight, but I didn't have to be like all holy and lawful good.
Well, think about my character Albertus is no one would ever describe him as being perfect because he is a bit of a stuck-up asshole. He has lectured another player character because he didn't believe that a female character should be out adventuring. Because he's stuck in the old ways. Is how I'm playing him.
Yeah.
He believes he's there to protect the women, not go adventuring with them. So that's how I'm playing him anyway. That's how I'm playing him.
So here's a stereotype. So there's the stereotype where the hate, that like the character, the player character, that other player characters hate has to be humiliated by the GM. And it happens a lot, like more than people think about it.
The vengeful GM.
Yeah, there's always like this character who doesn't get along with other characters, and therefore the GM literally fucks him like at any chance.
Yeah. That is the sign of a bad GM, though. Because I understand.
Indeed.
So if one player is making problems at the table for the rest of the group, that is a conversation that needs to be had. But it needs to be had out of character and person to person, and not hiding behind shit and being a coward and nuking the other character and being passive aggressive about it. Basically,
certainly. It can, if it happens organically and is based on character actions, the whole actions have consequences thing, then I don't so much have a problem, because in Bear's game, my character did cause problems in the first session for his people.
Yeah.
And the second session had a really, really good scene of Bear playing the part of a knight commander, giving my character an absolute dressing down.
But is that what you're talking about, me?
That was fun.
Is organic, developing, are you talking about in-game consequences for in-game actions, or are you talking about a DM who can't who can't have that adult conversation with players, and so takes it out on a player in game in sort of that cheesy bullshit kind of way.
I'm talking about that, like a character is doing in-game actions and it doesn't resonate with the other characters of the other players, and it's somehow gets under the skin of the GM.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it starts targeting the player.
Yeah, that's a matter of degrees. Because in-game consequences for in-game actions is completely legitimate as long as they're proportionate. Yeah. But once the DM starts taking it personal, yeah, that's a problem.
My character has killed other characters in the party just because they were doing what he considered to be annoying. Second edition game I was in, I was playing a gnomish illusionist thief just because it seemed really cool. And we had a cleric who was one of the holier than thou, and his big thing was he would always push my gnome out of the way so he could charge up to the front of the battle, and he'd always say, well, I'm going to shove the gnome and say, out of the way, peck, and charge my way to the front of the battle. So he did that one time. I said, okay, I'm going to sneak up behind him and backstab him, and I did. And again, this is the one that loved the critical hit chart, so I rolled a very high. I rolled a 20, and then I rolled pretty high, and apparently with my dagger, I cut the cleric's leg off at the hip. So
was your character chaotic evil?
He was pure neutral, but he absolutely had no use for racism.
So murder is his go-to response? That's a bit extreme.
I mean, I've seen
it. I'd be forcing an alignment change on you real quick.
Well, since my surprise attack that was just supposed to nick him and take him off the front line, cut his leg off with my 6-inch dagger, somebody else in the party saw it and they killed me. But
well, that's fair then.
I've seen parties degenerate into full-on melee. Back in the day, when I played more, we had a party that had 2 psionic thieves in it, which was so fun. Jesus. And so they spent the entire time like being invisible and stealing people's shit. And when they finally got caught, it ended up being like, Avengers Civil War. Half the party is with them and half the party isn't with them. Funny enough, it was along the lines of the 2 gaming groups who were playing together too. So we had 2 gaming groups basically showdown in a party melee.
That sounds fun.
Well, my illusionist thief had a boot with a hollow heel in it, and he had cast Nystel's magic aura or something like that on a rock and hid it in his boot heel, so that if he ever did anything and got caught, he could blame it on that. Oh, this rock is cursed, and that's what made me do this thing. But it didn't work out in that situation because, the whole cutting off of a leg with a backstab.
Can I make a side note that has nothing to do with what we're talking about? Who has cats?
Me.
Okay. You ever do that thing where you pick up your cat and you smell them and you're like, you smell so good. What were you lying in? Like, why do you smell like that?
Why has nobody ever made the cat
Nothing in my house has the scent, but you smell like it. Why?
The cleanliness.
My dog just smells of dog.
Somebody needs to make a laundry.
It smells good after she's been groomed.
Fresh cat.
Laundry sheet, fresh cat. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. What? You mad?
If I was to smell a cat like that, I couldn't smell anymore.
My
allergy.
Yeah, Piglet, that's the thing. I have no idea because the DM blindly followed his critical hit chart and said, well, that's what it says you did.
Cutting someone's leg off with a 6-inch dagger is impressive.
It takes work, but it can be done.
Your character held still while he sawed at it.
Right?
The other guy didn't react until the job was done.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, as the GM, and I see that, I'm like, okay, well, clearly you didn't cut your leg. You cut a major artery, you bled out instantly.
Yeah, he hit the femoral artery, and that's that.
So then he made another character that one's name was Fender Strat because he thought he was going to be a musician in real life. So he named his character after a pair of guitars. So then he made another cleric, and that cleric took a critical hit to the head and lost like 6 points of intelligence. That character's name was Corbin, and ever after he took that hit, we called him Corbin Gump.
I would certainly question that DM's critical hit table. I mean, I
did. But
I would be the rules lawyer here and go.
I mean, I'd be easy. I'm like, can we just for the sake of my believability, DM, can we just say that I cut his artery and didn't cut his leg off? That's just dumb.
Yeah.
Or I would just not care because it's just a cheap interpretation of a die roll.
The old Rollmaster critical hit results.
You hit an invisible turtle with your lance in a pole vault.
Yeah,
At least they're uncommon. That's the thing with those.
you would think.
But the guy that played this cleric, his big thing was he always had to play the one character class or the one race or something that had no sense whatsoever being there. We were
You
playing.
had to be the Bilbo.
We were playing a game that was D&D rules, but it was going to be in a Conan setting, and he just had to play a Kensai. It's like that world doesn't even exist here.
What's
So
a
he
Kensai?
called it from Oriental Adventures the Ultimate Weapon Master.
No, they'd be from Hyrcania
Or Kitai.
or Kitai.
Well, he was told he couldn't play it, but he whined and
Well, that's
cried enough
different.
for Buddy the DM let him.
I mean, if you're playing in the southwest of Hyboria, yeah, it's going to be a long walk.
We appear to have two me do too.
Yeah.
Me do too. Me do too.
And then,
You do
then when
too.
we were playing
Also
vampires, we had to play
Me
a
Too Wet.
samurai, which those were not supposed to be even in existence anymore, but he just had to play one. It's like
Wait,
this guy just had to be the center of attention at all times.
hang on, hold that thought. To me do. Roll for sanity. We saw two me do at the same time. We got to make
do.
sanity.
Real Me Too.
Yeah.
Well,
me do as a
we
species
caught
are
I don't-
very
We
scary.
caught a doppelganger in the process of the attack. He absorbed the other one, and now we just have one me do again. But is it the real one or is it
You
Memorax?
still have the doppelganger. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Am I the
I
real
don't think
one?
either me or my character can handle any more sanity loss.
Now I've got to watch The Thing.
I'm a little concerned by all of these there shenanigans.
Me do take your sanity.
Me do take your sanity.
Right, we are coming. We have 5 minutes of the stream left at most, so we are in the wobbling on at the end bit.
Yes.
We have pretty much
my
hammered
favorite time.
we have pretty much hammered the topic. But Bear, if you remember,
Yeah.
about 3 or 4 months ago, I mentioned something about me bringing when I come to Canada, bringing my Marvel superhero stuff over
Mm-hmm.
because you've lost all yours.
Yes.
I would like to show you what you'll be getting. Here we go.
Because he holds up like a beat up comic book or something. Right?
Right. Okay.
You get this.
Page
We have-
5 of the judge's book.
It's the back cover of the Ultimate Powers book. Enjoy that.
Here, I've got a universal table for you.
We have that.
Ooh, that's the expanded basic set that came out in the 90s. I love that set.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
good book.
Beautiful.
We have some extra maps.
Nice.
Okay. We have
Was that Avengers Coast to Coast you just held up, or the X-Men Children of the Atom? What was that? The green one.
Time Trap.
Time Trapper. Oh, good one.
Okay. We have a load of stand-up things from one of the add-on packs.
That's from the expanded set. That's really good. Yeah.
We have the Breeder Bombs.
Nice.
We have Project Wide Awake.
Nice. I see you were going on that whole mutant thing. I get it. Breeder Bonds, by the way. New York City book. Ooh.
I love the section in there where they talk about insurance rates in New York and the Marvel Universe.
Concrete Jungle. Very good. Weapons Locker.
Oh, I love that book. Weapons
Great book.
Locker.
Realms of Magic. Shut up. So in the Palladium game, you have those. Those things are super rare.
So Yogg just gained 3 levels in Palladium.
I'm so sorry that his character now has a plus 20 Vorpal Sword of Destroying. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
John
Palladium,
Stone.
the very first edition of Palladium, one thing I liked about them was they had a really good insanity table.
You got him in a lot
Much
of trouble.
better.
They're still coming, Bear. They're still coming.
Cat's Paw. Nice. You have a lot of the adventures. That's cool.
Yeah, I think Bear is as well.
A little bit. Thunder over Jotunheim.
I love that one just for the source material on Asgard.
Yes, very good. Very good. And the campaign book. Very nice. Okay, John, seriously, you're level 10 in that Palladium.
There you go.
In fact,
How
Iman's
to
gonna
bribe
give you-
your DM in one
Iman's
easy
now
lesson.
negative level 2, and you'll get those 2.
What?
Game balance in there.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I'll
You know,
still be a
Blanca
better knight
is
than
its
him.
own game, my friend, and I have that too. was the first superhero game I ever played was V&V, but I love Marvel. Thank you so much, John. I will have a gift for you when you get here. I don't know what it will be yet, but I will have a gift for you.
Here's my cat. Take it away.
Would you like a cat? I have two.
I will tell you all of that.
It's long and short.
I got that. I played it when I was a kid. And then I lost it all in my house move and whatever. And I just happened to see all that on eBay about 6 or 7 years ago as a bundle, a whole lot, all of that as one bundle. And I thought that's going to go for a silly amount. And I put in a speculative bid of 25 quid.
And you got it.
And got it.
Fuck. Dude, there are things in that set that you just showed me that are worth 25 quid on their own.
Yeah.
Does the New York have the Game Master screen, or is that gone?
I don't know.
Yeah. If it doesn't have the hard cardboard screen, it's not worth as much, but that hard cardboard screen goes for a lot now.
I'll have a look.
So, less than 1 minute left. Does anyone have closing words on the topic?
I say
You
nothing
mean
bad
that?
about John. No, that's the wheel. That's fun. You got to build that yourself. That's a whole other beast. That's cool. No, I'm good. I'm good. I
Matt,
will say nothing bad about John. John is awesome. We all love John. All hell yog. Pro fraternity.
doesn't appear to have a
We
hard
could say
cardboard
happy
screen
birthday
now.
to John's channel. That's what we
Happy
could say.
birthday to the
Oh.
YouTube channel.
Yes, happy birthday. 3-year anniversary for my channel.
So does that mean you and Mage are going to be doing your drinking game soon?
I hope so. I don't know where Mage is tonight. He's probably with his new lady friend, I would imagine. But
He's
he was on
editing
earlier.
videos tonight.
Right, okay. But hopefully we'll organise another drinking stream soon where we play Drinking Quest and get drunk for your enjoyment.
Mhm.
Can I just
Which
come
we've done
be the
before.
bouncer?
No, if you're live on that one, you have to be involved in the game and you have to have something strong and you have to be downing it every time you're told to.
Sorry, I can't participate. I'm a teacher.
Yeah, I got to just watch that one.
I'm a teetotal.
sorry, I can't
Sorry.
You can watch us be stupid.
Yeah.
I do that all the time anyway.
I was going to say that.
Last time it was me, Mage, Squirrel Hermit, and Saxius.
Saxius drunk is a bad idea.
It was quite entertaining.
You want Vikings? That's how you end up with the Vikings.
Yeah, you don't get the Vikings drinking. I'm just saying.
John wakes up one morning, Saxius has parked a longboat on his front lawn and
Now,
People,
your front door.
people were making super chats to make us drink, especially Hungar. Hungar was very devious, and yeah.
Like you do.
It was amusing. It was amusing.
supposedly in March, was it Trollboard Games is going to begin the Kickstarter for the Worlds of Gary Gygax. I want it's like a 5-book set on world building. I got an announcement about that
Ooh.
in the email. So if anybody's
Nice.
into that kind of thing, I just got the Hermit, and that's a pretty cool set. And then I kickstarted the Hermit, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty cool set. Marmorial Tomb is the one I just got, and that's a pretty good product too. There's a lot of stuff in there that you can steal for your own game.
It's the sort of stuff I'd like to get. At the moment, I'm very, very much diverting every bit of spare funds I've got towards the Games Expo, the UK Games Expo, which is going to be end of May, start of June. So I always end up spending silly at that, and going to Canada. But the channel has made enough money for me to get to Canada now. So.
And Ernie posted on his Facebook page.
Nice.
They don't expect him to make it through the year. So if anybody has ever had it in their mind to go to Lake Geneva and play a game at his house with him and all his stuff, or get him to sign some of your things, you may want to do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I've heard he's not well.
Mhm.
Heard he's not well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on that sad note, I am going to bring the stream to an end. So some of us on here have channels,
No.
Oh, really?
including
Who told you those lies?
so you.
Oh, well, yeah, I am Canadian.
There's no channel. There's only Zool.
Ooh, what a beautiful singing
Oh.
voice you must have, Zuli.
So
You need some Thorazine?
push your channels. Go on, do a bit of shilling.
Society of Role Playing Gamers, come on, head by. We're going to have the Four Color Cafe at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, and they're going to put me through a struggle session where they're going to be asking me tons and tons and tons of questions about the Heroic Backer Kit, which is on Friday. So, yeah, that should be interesting to see what questions they throw at me.
Because you, of course, have a product coming out, don't you?
Yeah, Friday we launch. We're going to have the launch party starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and at 8 p.m., 5 p.m. Pacific, it's going to go live, and we need a lot of money. So, hey, come throw money at my project, please.
Speaking of throwing money, Halakar.
Put that towards your Kickstarter fund.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you, Halakar. Thank you, Halakar. If
Yeah,
you've just got yourself, if you've just got yourself a membership from that, just
Slan got one.
nod.
No, nice.
Malaki, O'Neill Flynn, Grumpy Old Slan, PBR Street Gang, Ace of Spades, Jason Jacobson, Saxius, CBK Ply, DM Dwayne, and Richard Payan.
Recognize at least half of those names. There's a Saxius in there. There's a Slan in there. There's a few other names. A few other names I recognize in there. Good to see people getting memberships. Thank you, Halakar.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I like it when it's names I see on here a lot.
Yeah. Iman.
Intellectual quandary, video game stuff.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Is
why
that
not?
it?
Learned well, Padawan.
Iman,
Slan, you've got to play Tempest for us on one of your videos coming up soon. I'm just putting in a request.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's one of my favorite games. I love that.
Mine
game.
too.
Yeah, so
What game?
Tempest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Wasted too many quarters on that one.
The video game?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, that was my jam. I love that game.
So I'm the Grumpy Old Slan, and I talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I read old magazine, play old games, read old books, and talk about that.
cool. And we played a French Choose Your Own Adventure, which was much more vicious than any of the Brits.
It was deadly. I never expected it to be quite that deadly.
Eli.
Elfbait is the channel name. I stream on Sundays, generally talking about gaming stuff. And I now have been and will be continuing to stream a live play game on Mondays, an OSE campaign by the sword, done in the style of a Conan-y kind of a world. Grumpy Old Slan is in that one.
You bet.
He's
Graphics
specifically
provided by
chosen his Sunday afternoon stream, Sunday afternoon here, because he knows it's my busiest day of the week, and I can't infest his chat too often. That's the thing. That's
why I stream late at night, so that way I know you're asleep.
Or mine.
Yeah. All of you. You just do it on purpose to keep me out, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I play on Mondays. I don't play on Sundays.
No, your Sunday stream.
Oh, my Sundays. Yeah. Well, it's the morning for me, sir.
I sadly, every other week I work 14 hours straight on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. 10 till midnight.
Good God.
Ugh.
Hopefully you do that so it frees up some time. Go for it.
No, I work alternate weekends in the shop. I work every Sunday evening, so I get I start work at 4:30 at home for my quiz. It takes about 4 hours to get it all prepared. Then I go out and host it, and I'm back about midnight. And alternate weeks, I do a 10 till 4 shift in the shop as well. So there you go. That's my Sundays. Halakar, you don't have a channel.
I need somebody to show me how to set one up someday. I've got all sorts of ideas.
Do you have a YouTube account? Which you...
Yeah, he must have, because he's...
I have a YouTube
Yeah,
premium.
because
I mean, clearly you do, but...
you can just start uploading.
Yeah, you literally just start uploading and it'll upload underneath your name. I mean,
Maybe
I
on the
haven't done
Discord.
anything special for my channel.
I've never even recorded a video. Like I need someone to hold my hand through basic before I get to expert and advanced.
The
So
basic
it's live streaming, it's easier.
point one of
I'm
these
still
in,
at basic.
or you use your webcam that you're doing right now. That's what got me back into it. Is StreamYard plus webcam makes it easy.
Yep.
So now doing more Advanced interesting episodes is a little bit trickier because I don't have any kind of editing software.
It takes a bit of time to learn that as well.
I'm not too hard on learning it. I've learned it in the past. It's just anything that I can't afford any of it nowadays, and so any of it you find that's free is like crap.
The one I use is free, so that. But yeah, okay.
I just want to start with all the modules that I've either been through as a DM or a player, do a deep dive in them, and tell stories about the stupid crap we did as teenagers when we were playing them. There's 70 episodes right there.
Absolutely. Midu, do you have a channel?
Me do not have a channel yet. Maybe by the end of this year. I'll let you know if something happens, but no plans for a channel for now. So I have something to say to the viewers. The stream is closing, so roll a sanity check.
And hit the like button. Quick,
Padawan, you are learning well.
You got a wide head on the shoulders.
Yeah.
If you subscribe, you have to roll 1d10 sanity.
Well, Dan was with us earlier. Dan doesn't have a channel, but he takes part in our.
John, you know the bot that you have on the chat. You should change it instead of "I will take your souls" or "You'll lose sanity." You should change it to that.
But that's the Demilich one. I mean, I need to put a Cthulhu one in there as well. So, because "I will take your souls" is in relation to the Demilich.
Of course.
You roll sanity.
There are, of course, plenty of people in chat who have channels, and I do apologize if I missed you out, but I have seen we had Major's Musings in earlier. He of course has a channel. From the Hilt. That's Chris's channel name. Who have I missed out? Anybody I've missed out? No, I don't know. I think Malachi's just started a channel. If you want to see us playing, Bear does lots of live play streams. I play in one of his monthly ones. Eli does live play streams fortnightly. So we do now practice what we preach online. And if you want to play games with us, I do have a Discord. I believe pretty much everybody who wants to join it, because I always shill it, is already part of it, but we are still dripping in a few more members, and we're playing games this weekend. So what we're playing this Saturday, we're playing Slan's running OSE in the afternoon or morning if you're in America, and I'm running OSE in the evening or afternoon if you're in America. And they're dropping that
channel.
Mark Hoffman.
Mark Hoffman,
yes. Mark Hoffman has a channel.
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
yes.
I thought so.
Yes.
I usually watch his videos on Discord, so I haven't. Okay.
If you like your Star Trek, Mark Hoffman dissects Star Trek episodes.
Yes.
For gaming purposes. So if you want to play games with us, we're playing this Saturday. And it is a very relaxed drop-in game. We don't bother with hardcore role-playing at all. It's just one of those games where they're having real old-school fun. Killing monsters, laughing at each other, poking fun at Daniel as much as we can, rolling bad numbers on D20s, and listening to Gingerbeard's dry sense of humor. That sort of thing. It's that sort of thing. It's just a bit of fun. It's just a bit of fun. What you'd call a beer and pretzels game.
Mm-hmm.
And we like it. It's fun. We get 6 to 8 people there most Saturdays, so it's a good size group. Come along and join in. And with that, I'll see you all Friday, where we continue the Lone Wolf stream.
See you.
Yes.
Cheers all.
Bye, everyone.